everyone, and welcome to Conversations in Horror, the podcast. I am your host, Kevin L. Powers. I'm also the owner and operator of Something Wicked Entertainment and Events, and I want to welcome you to our program today. Now, what I love to do on this show is I take an individual film, and me and special guests will sit down, we'll have a conversation about it. We're going to critique, analyze, look at all the elements and the filmography of this film to kind of give an ideal of what we enjoy about the film or what we don't enjoy about the film. And hopefully you, as our listener, will have a great time listening to us talk about that particular film. This being said, we do spoil movies sometimes, so if you are someone who has not seen the movie that we are discussing, please make sure to stop this recording, go watch the film, and then come back and enjoy it. But otherwise, if you do not care, we hope that you don't care and you will listen to us talk about it, because we are not shy about spoiling some movies that are classic. And this film that we're talking about today may be one of those films in which we spoil stuff because there's film people out there who have seen this film, there are film lovers out there who have not seen this film, and then there are film people out there who just know of its infamy. And that film is Wes Craven's Last House on the Left from 1972. And to delve into this film with me, I have brought along my esteemed colleague, Mr. Thomas Tinarello. I want to thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Kevin L. Powers, and I am also delighted to delve into the filmography of this film, as if the film itself is also a filmmaker and has separate pieces of it that are released. I'm not sure what you were going with that one, but I'm rolling with it.
Roll with it, baby, roll with it, because here we're just gonna roll with it, especially considering that this is one of those films of the esteemed Wes Craven, director Wes Craven, which kind of boggles the mind of some people, and then some people avoid it like the plague. But that does not denote the fact that this was a hugely terrifying and popular film when it originally came out in the 70s.
It was a huge hit, and also like a huge controversial think piece.
Yes.
For the time. And in some circles, it is still controversial, actually.
I would say that as well, only because of my recent rewatch for this podcast episode. I was like, wow, this film still packs a punch. Sometimes it packs a weird punch, and sometimes it just packs a punch.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also let's we'll get into it, but like this isn't. You said this is one of his films, but it's not just one of his films. I think most people know, if you're a Wes Craven fan, you know this is his first major motion picture. This is where it all begins, because up until this time, Wes had just done pornographic films and edited some pornos for Steve Miner. Now, is it Steve Miner or Sean Cunningham? One of those guys was making pornos in New York at the time.
It's Sean Cunningham.
Yeah, because actually, and if you're a horror fan, obviously those two names are ringing bells in your head right now, because yes, Sean S. Cunningham, same guy who produced almost all, if not all the Friday the 13th movies, and also my favorite haunted house movie of all time, second favorite haunted house movie. The first would be The Others with Nicole Kidman, but my second favorite haunted house movie of all time is House with William Catt, and Cunningham also produced that masterpiece of horror comedy. And but yeah, he worked with Wes on this movie, and so did Steve Miner, who I think directed the first Friday or the second one.
He did the second and third, I believe.
The second and third.
Cunningham did the first one. Sean Cunningham did the first one.
Got it. So yeah, so this trinity of guys came together to make this movie, which is unjustly, I think, regarded as a proto-slasher because of the nature of the story, but also because this literally came out 2 years before Black Christmas, which I think more properly deserves the title of the quote-unquote first slasher. And even that, really, it's more, if you're gonna give any movie that title, you got to give it to either Mario Bravo's Bay of Blood, or you got to give it to Peeping Tom. Either of those movies really classify as a slasher more than this movie. This movie is not a slasher. No, because this movie, to have a slasher, you need a killer and a secluded location and a body count. And unless you're going to make the argument that the slasher in this movie is fate or God, and his victims include, again, spoilers, the killers, then yeah, I guess it's a slasher. But no, I don't. I know. I think it's a stretch. No, this is really more of a, and it's not even. And some people say, "Oh, it's a home invasion thriller." No, no, it's not, because the the killers get invited in, which boggles my mind, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But no, this is what we call the rape revenge thriller.
Yeah.
Which, is more popularized probably by another movie that came out a couple years later, or maybe right around the same time as this movie.
I think around the same time.
Yeah, I Spit in Your Grave. When did that come out?
I'm not 100. We have not done that on the show, although I really enjoy I Spit on Your Grave, the original one. 78.
78. Well, so way after this one. Okay. So yeah, this one was a pioneering movie in many aspects. So I guess you could say it kind of sort of pioneered the rape revenge genre. And again, before I move on, I just said the R word twice. Ladies and gentlemen out there, if this sort of thing dredges up horrible memories of something that happened to you, just warning about that, because we're going to be talking about that a lot. I'm very sorry if that's the case. There are other things you could be listening to right now. But if you're okay with that, if you're okay with exploring this extremely dark subject matter, then by all means, continue on. But this is your warning right here, right now. Also, like we had to mention, like, this movie, since it came out in 72, that means this movie came out before Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And it's funny because then Wes Craven's like second major motion picture after this is The Hills Have Eyes, which was unabashedly the best Texas Chainsaw Massacre ripoff. So it seems like, in a weird way, this movie influenced Texas Chainsaw, and then Wes Craven's next movie was influenced by Texas Chainsaw, which is kind of weird.
It's kind of weird, actually, when you think about it.
Yeah, it is kind of weird.
They were all influencing each other without realizing they were influencing each other.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about Wes's influences too, because Wes Craven as an artist as a horror artist, I don't think there's really any other like him. I think the closest thing you could come to is maybe, and I think we mentioned him before, is well, Herschel Gordon Lewis, when he started off, was kind of an ignorant artist too. He only did horror and gore just as a kind of sideshow trick. He didn't really do anything to innovate the genre beyond just that, which is a big innovation for the time. He was doing that way before Wes Craven was. And then maybe Werner Herzog, who really only did one horror movie, but again, he is an ignorant artist in the fact that none of these guys went to film school. None of these guys studied film. Wes Craven, I don't know what order these podcasts are going to be released in, but we did another, I think in our Hills Have Eyes segment, we did mention that Wes Craven was educated at a very conservative Baptist college called Wheaton College. I think he got his degree in journalism and the humanities, where then he became a humanities professor. And this is funny because that's how that was his mannerism. He was just like a nice, laid back, really well read guy wrestling with religious trauma. And you get a lot of that in this movie. But he also was influenced not by horror movies. I read somewhere, and I don't know how true this is, because not all, but most of my research here was in the IMDb Did You Know section. And just looking at it, I'm thinking some of this has to be BS. But I'm pretty sure that some of it was not BS. Like, one of the factors that, because his upbringing from his parents was so strict, he didn't even watch a movie that wasn't directed by Walt Disney or Pollyanna or something like that until he was well into his 20s. And there was an art house theater nearby the college that he was teaching at. And that's where he discovered movies by Bergman, Kurosawa, and probably Godard and things like that. But since he was a humanities professor, he also was very much aware of like classical literature and classical art. So that is what influenced him. not film. And definitely not horror movies. I think I read somewhere that he said that the only horror movie that he ever watched before he got the job to make this movie from Sean Cunningham was Night of the Living Dead, the original. And by golly, I guess if you're going to start, that's a good place to start.
That is a great place, and you probably see some of those influences on the way he shot this film. Now that you think about it,
well, I do think they'd have one thing in common, which is but I don't think this was Night of the Living Dead. It's just like a kind of a coincidence. But like Night of the Living Dead is a very documentary style to it because George Romero shot industrial documentary films for his job in Pittsburgh before he started making the zombie movies and such. But Craven had edited some documentaries before that too. So he decided that he was going to have, with this movie, he's going to approach it like a documentary. So if you watch it, you can see that every shot, every setup, pretty much everything in this movie has a documentary ethos about it. And I saw this interview with him when he was on Mick Garris's post-mortem. He said that the thing about documentarians, he said, that he really liked was that they don't look away.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much everything you see here, especially when it gets to the violence, he doesn't look away. Although we'll get into it. There are some edits that look like he kind of sort of does look away a couple of times. There's some things that I'm surprised weren't in there that aren't. But then again, there are some things that I'm grateful weren't in there that aren't. But yeah, so both Night of the Living Dead, I think, and this have a documentary feel to them, where the camera observes. It does not interfere. And it certainly does not editorialize. No. Which is pretty neat.
Okay.
Although, and as Kevin adjusts himself and makes himself more comfortable in his chair, we should probably mention very briefly what this movie is about. And I'd like to know where you first encountered this movie, Mr. Powers. I'm going to turn the tables on you for a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Sometimes this is probably a good one to do that with, actually. So as I was studying and catching up on Wes Craven films, when Wes Craven became one of the directors I decided to look into and follow, probably in the 2000s, so right after college, I remember I did this deep dive on directors that I liked, and I started to look into all their previous films that they'd done that I'd never seen and never heard of. I came across this film. I had read some books about this film before seeing it, mostly about Wes Craven, but I hadn't gotten my hands on this film. At some point, I got my hands on the film as I can't remember if it was a DVD originally or if it was a VHS tape. I honestly do not remember. But I ended up, I bought it because I started to collect Wes Craven films. I bought it, and despite the fact I had seen this I Spit on Your Grave before this movie did kind of turned me away for a while. And this is the reason why I kind of was going to ask you how you feel about this movie. For me, watching I Spit on Your Grave was more of a rape revenge because the person, the main character, gets her revenge. But with this one, she doesn't really get her revenge because she gets killed. And her parents are the one that gets the revenge. And that kind of, it did something else for me when it came that. It's like, shit, we're following these two girls. What are the names again? Mari and
Phyllis.
Mari and Phyllis, and all this shit. They're just thinking they're going to go out to this concert, and all this shit happens to them in the blink of an eye, and then they both end up getting killed. And then
getting killed is the least bad thing.
Well, yeah. Yeah, but they get raped and killed, and then it's like they get away with it in a sense. It's just happenstance that the parents find out that their daughter was a victim by these people.
Well, they don't just find out; it's that the killers just so happened to bring them to a secluded bit of woods to have some fun with them after they've had some fun with them in their hovel in the
Yeah.
city. And as soon as we get out of the car, Mari notices, oh crap, that's my parents' mailbox. And she says nothing because she's gagged. But we know it's her parents' mailbox because not only does it say her last name on it, it's literally got her name written on it with a little heart on it because her grandpa wrote it in the very opening credits of this movie. So that's the big, like, what the heck coincidence that kind of drives the whole third act of this movie, that they just happen to be right there.
It does, and I missed all that when I first saw this movie.
Really?
I missed that mailbox detail completely until I rewatched it for the podcast. I always considered that very, because I've only seen it twice. It just rubbed me the wrong way the first time, and so I never watched it again. And so what happened was I always thought it was just happenstance that they would be next to her parents' house. And so that's always rubbed me the wrong way. That all this stuff is just, it's just, out of all the houses they could have picked, that one just happens to be there, blah, blah, blah. But when I rewatched it, it's all set up really well. It's all set up with the cops and the way that all the cops miss these details and all that type of stuff. It's all set up there when I paid attention to it this second time watching it. But the first time I watched it, I did not pay attention enough for that. I think the story just started off one way. I thought it was going to be something else, and it wasn't. And this film was kind of like one of the Wes Craven films. I think it's the only film of his that just stayed out of my brain forever. I literally did. Out of all of his films, I've watched his films many times. Most of all of his films, many times, except for Deadly Blessing, which is the only one I had just gotten like 2 years ago. It was the only one I had not seen. I think I just saw that one. I think that was the last one. I think I've seen all of his films now. So it was hard for me to get that one. But this
I haven't seen that one yet either. I haven't seen that one yet either, and I haven't seen Music of the Heart yet either.
I've seen that one. Yeah, I own those. I've owned this one. I bought this again on DVD when the remake came out. And I didn't watch it.
Okay, so then you probably have the MGM edition, because there's several different edits of this movie that are out there. In fact, some of our listeners out there might have very different memories of certain things of this movie than we have, because I'm not even sure that what I saw on Tubi is the uncut version. Because we'll get into it, but like there's a part where I could swear I saw more than was actually on the screen, and I'm sure it wasn't just Mandela affecting my brain. It was something else, but we'll get into it when we get into it. So yeah.
So that's kind of like I have a different opinion on the film now, slightly, than when I first saw it, because I just turned away from it the first one, and after I saw the remake, I considered the remake a far superior film, and I never really gave this one another chance until we decided to do it for the show. I have read a book. I've read a book about this film. I don't remember any details. I must have blocked it all out after I read it, because I know in my film studies, if there's a film out there that just doesn't click with me for some reason, I always go and search out more details to figure out why it didn't click with me. And then I usually give it a rewatch. But I know I did not rewatch this. I've only seen this movie twice. The first time I saw it, and then when I rewatched it for this one, and there are details I completely missed from the very first time that kind of shadowed my opinions of the film until I rewatched it. There are still details and things I question about this film, but because this is Wes Craven's only film that doesn't really sit with me well. And I don't know how your reactions were with this, or when you first saw it, or anything like that. So
Well, we'll get into that then. Okay, so technically, the first time I've seen this movie all the way through, at least the version that I saw on Tubi, which is the hour and 23-minute version, which is the longest version available in the States. Every other version is shorter and has different edits. So I think this is the quote-unquote uncut version, but like I said, there are some of these, ironically, some of these shorter versions that we'll talk about have more have maybe a little bit more gore and some little bit more violence, weirdly enough, and some have much less. And like, there's even a version of this that was released to Germany that's like less than an hour long. They cut so much out of it. It's basically a TV movie at that point.
Wow.
But yeah, because Germany up until very recently had very, very, very stringent laws against violent movies because of the war. Yeah, yeah. I mean, anyway, that's the whole other thing. But anyway, so I was about to get off on Necromantic and how that was a big impact on that censorship battle. But anyway, so yeah, World War II. That's a whole other thing too. So this movie, I was first introduced to the lore and the reputation of this movie through just a casual mention, somewhat casual mention from Joe Bob Briggs, who, for my money, is probably the greatest, if not the second greatest, horror movie host. He was doing, I think I was coming of age when he did his Monster Vision on TNT. And one time, I think they were doing a Wes Craven double feature. I think it might have been Serpent in the Rainbow and Shocker. And I think he actually had Wes on the show, not in the studio. I remember he was on a little TV monitor, and they interviewed Wes. And I think at one point, I think maybe like when he just finished one of the movies, he said, "Well, that one was quite scary, but not nearly as scary as his first movie, Last House on the Left." And he said it was just the scariest. That was Wes Craven's scariest movie, was Last House on the Left. And then I think he mentioned the ad campaign for it, which is just remember, it's only a movie.
Yeah.
It's only a movie. It's only a movie. Which, if you watch the trailer, the very scary voice that narrates this thing makes the movie so much more terrifying than it probably is. But I imagine audiences in 1972. I can't imagine what they were feeling. But so I had heard about that. And then years later, not many years later, it was during, I think, my first trip to LA in 98 or 99. And I think it's probably 98. But it was like a senior, it was like a birthday present. My Aunt Sharon took me to LA where she was working, and she took me to this really famous bookstore. I think it's called not Book Nook. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a really famous bookstore where every like whatever actors need to research a role in LA, they will go to this bookstore and check out a book from it. And like my aunt has said, she has bumped into many famous actors in this bookstore. And we did not bump into anybody famous at this bookstore at that particular day. But what I did do was there was a book. I don't know if it was a career retrospective on Wes Craven or if it was just about this movie. But I looked inside it and I was kind of intrigued / disturbed by the black and white inserts inside this book about Last House. And I was kind of reading it a little bit. And then I started reading, and I didn't check the book out. I kind of wish I had, but I didn't. I was too chicken maybe, but I put it away. But those images of the guy with the chainsaw stayed with me. And I thought, and then I had this whole, of course I knew the vague plot of the movie. And I knew it was a remake of Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring, which we will get into later. And I had thought, and so for years I had in the back of my head this idea of a remake of Last House as a like prestige, gritty drama, like something like Sam Mendes would have done, or like the Coen brothers would have done, or like Sam Raimi might have done, like post Simple Plan, that kind of movie. Can you imagine that guy at that time doing like a serious dramatic version of Last House on the Left? And I started thinking about what that movie would look like. And I never wrote a script for it or anything because I had no illusions about getting the rights to that thing. But like I even had like an idea for like a sequence where like the junior character, the most innocent, quote unquote, of all of the killers, gets killed by the mother. in my version, and she just like stabs him in the chest over and over again, so you like see his beating heart get stabbed. That's basically like replicating kind of what Suspiria did with the heart stab in that movie. And like as she sees the life get out of his eyes, and then that's when it all hits her. Of course, in my version, and we'll get into it maybe more, but in my version, I thought it would have been a little bit better if the revenge cost her something. Because in my version, the dad gets killed too, and like she's the only survivor. So to me, it would have made the idea that this, because this is basically Wes Craven has come out and said that this movie was supposed to be a violent anti-violence movie, a movie that's supposed to make all the violence, no matter how justified it might be, as horrific and gruesome as possible, so as to kind of deter anybody from any violence at all. And we'll get into why that was in the air, as it were. But I thought to myself, well, if you're going to make that point, Wes, you probably should have had one of the parents die, because then, I mean, granted, that doesn't really happen in the original source material either, but I thought it would have been a nice addition to that movie. I kind of feel like
something like that does happen a little bit in this at the end of this movie.
Not really. They're not.
When the cops show up, when the bumbling cops show up.
Oh God.
And they more or less stop them from continuing their rage. You get a sense that they're.
What do you mean continue? It's done. They're annihilated. All four of those guys are donezo. I mean,
but you kind of get the sense that they're not going to be like they're going to be taken in and maybe even charged with something. You don't.
They'll be charged with something. But Kevin, no jury in America would convict them of anything.
No, but the idea is they'll get away scot. These people don't look like they're going to get away just scot free. Like if they wanted them to do that way, they wouldn't have had the bumbling cops show up again at the very end. You know, give like law and order does come back around, even if they are bumbling idiots by the time they get to the very end.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it's Law and Order coming back. I don't know, but yeah.
I say that's why I say the symbolic Law and Order. Since I call them bumbling idiots.
Yeah, well, they are bumbling idiots. I mean, that's what Wes Craven wants you to think, and he totally he nails that for sure.
Yeah, you have a sense that you can't trust law and order, and you get that from the different people that those cops run into when they lose the access to their car. That stuff I didn't take into consideration when I first watched this movie. When I rewatched it, I was like, there's a lot of comedy in this movie, and I don't remember there being any comedy in this movie when I first watched it.
Oh yeah. Well, apparently, according to the interview I saw, Wes is before he did this movie, he was really known. People were so surprised that he would even do a horror movie because, like, most people knew him for his dark sense of humor. He had a really, really dark sense of humor, so he liked doing comedy. Sadly, that he didn't really do a straight comedy before he died. I don't know if they would ever let him. Well, I guess the closest thing to that is Vampire in Brooklyn.
Which is what he wanted to do.
That's what he wanted to do, but I guess it didn't work in the end.
From what the stories I read on that one, Eddie Murphy wanted to make a horror film, Wes Craven wanted to make a comedy film, and it clashed. So the film is like some hodgepodge in between type of thing that doesn't always work.
Yeah, unless you're John Landis, and even then it's hit or miss.
Oh God, that's right. He is such a hit and miss. But let's keep going. Not deviate to John Landis until we do another John Landis film for the program.
Right. So this title, by the way, before we move on here, I'm just looking at the credits for this. Like, this title's kind of a lie, because when you say it last house on the left, to me it implies that this is the last house on the left-hand side of a suburban street. That it is not at all what this movie portrays. This is like the last house in the middle of the freaking woods in the middle of nowhere. That's what this is. It's like the last house on the edge of the property, the county line is what it is. This is like a rich, not even upwardly mobile. This is like a rich, conservative white couple's McMansion out there in the sticks of any town in America. But it turns out that's actually the Catskill. It's actually in New York. But Yeah, so I don't even know why the title even stuck. This movie actually went through several titles apparently before it settled on this one. I think originally it was going to be called Virgin, which would have been narky. Also, according to IMDb, and I don't think this. I doubt the veracity of this one, but according to IMDb, this movie was supposed to be a pornographic film called Virgin by Sean S. Cunningham, but apparently Wes Craven decided to cut out all that stuff and just decided to do it straight after everybody had been cast and assembled. It does kind of sort of explain some of the acting in the movie, which feels like that kind of amateurish level, but I don't buy that personally. I think that's apocryphal. But but another funny thing about it is that when you look at the credit, it says actually I think this is just in the trailer. It says Last House on the Left, a Hallmark release. I'm like, wait a minute.
Early
Is Wes Craven's Last House on the Left a Hallmark movie? Is this the first Hallmark movie?
I don't know if it's first Hallmark movie, but you have to go back and look into the details on all that, the history of Hallmark. I mean, that wouldn't be the first time that a corporate entity now with a clean cut bill of health used to do and delve into much more risque stuff before they cleaned the house.
Oh my gosh. I can't I want to believe, even if it's wrong, I want to believe that this is a Hallmark movie so I could tell people like, that that Hallmark has really come a long way.
Oh Jesus.
I mean, there is a kind of Hallmarkiness to it though, in a way. Like all the drama scenes kind of play almost like a Hallmark movie in the 70s. I love how Bill Hader described this movie. He called it the most effed up after school special he'd ever seen. And if you think about it, it kind of is, because these poor girls, they all the trouble starts simply because they want to buy grass, or rather, Philip wants to buy some grass before the concert,
Yeah.
and she just finds some rando on the side on the side of Billy and say, "Hey man, we can get some grass." And at first he's like, "No man, I don't got that stuff." And then he changes his mind, like, "Oh wait a minute, actually." And it turns out to be Junior, the youngest of the killers, and that's how he lures them into their house, or to their apartment, to their hovel, as it were.
Which I find very odd since you brought that scene up, just getting that scene, because it's very odd, because of the fact that Junior in theory is supposed to be bringing them more girls into that room, but at first he tells them, "Nah, I don't got any grass," but then he does have grass. Oh yeah, let me show you where it is. So you think that it would be something that as soon as they ask, it was like, "Oh yeah, I got some grass. Well, yeah, I got it right here." Instead, he has to say no first, and then he goes up and says yes. Um, I just
I
thought that
think
I just thought that was odd the first time. This time I watched it when I rewatched it.
the
So
other thing that makes sense to me, the other thing that makes sense to me is I think it was a choice by the actor who like realized, wait a minute, I'm playing a burnout. I'm playing a stoner. I'm playing someone who has half a functioning brain cell. I should probably be like all over the place. Like I wanna, I don't wanna, I should, you don't wanna. So I think that was probably a choice, which if you think about it, yeah, that makes sense. I guess that makes sense. I mean, that is something a stoner who's like really strung out probably would do and say. Um, but it speaks to the improvisational nature of the dialogue of this movie. I feel like there are times where the dialogue feels really teeny and corny, but then whenever there's a group of people together, especially when they're with the killers,
mhm.
all of their dialogue just seems well, there's some of it that doesn't, but most of their dialogue just feels very naturalistic because so much of it is improvised. Like Wes just let them go most of
That's
the
a good
time.
point to bring up, because I actually thought that too when I rewatched it. It made them it made them more realistic, but they also made me feel as though they were improving some of the stuff that they were doing. I got that feeling the second time I rewatched it. So it's interesting that you brought that up too. So
Yeah, and then, it kind of reminded me of while I was watching it. I thought to myself, this kind of, and I may have said this before about another movie on here, but this reminds me of the sort of thing that this is the kind of proto sort of thing that Rob Zombie became known for, which is what I call the the banal banter of killers. Because to me, like the most interesting and fun parts of Rob Zombie's the House of Thousand Corpses and Devil's Reject and some others is not the killing scenes. It's not even his cool camera setups or anything. It's the banter between the killers. It's the banter between the Firefly family when they're not killing. It's when they're going out for ice cream and they're arguing about it. It's all that family stuff.
mm-hmm.
And to me, you get that with this effed up family that the killers are. You get before they even make contact with their victims. You see them driving along, and we get the police radio giving us a litany of their crimes.
Yes.
Which is the most atrocious, awful, monstrous. Like Wes Craven is truly letting you know, beating you over the head with a 600-pound sledgehammer. Like, these are the most irredeemably monstrous humans in the face of God's green earth. I think I wrote it down a little bit, like what their crimes were. I think, there's four of them. There's Krug, who is like the ringleader, and also
David Hess.
Played by David Hess. David Hess, who was like I guess he's like if De Niro were a lot scuzzier during Taxi Driver and had longer hair. That's kind of what David Hess is, but not nearly as handsome as De Niro. But yeah, it's like this says, be on the lookout for four. Describes him, and then there's Sadie, his girlfriend, and then there's Junior, his son, although Junior being his biological son, the son of Krug, is not, I think, immediately clear. It only becomes clear way later on. And then it gets even more messed up, if you think about it. So, as we're cross-cutting, there's Krug and Junior, his little Zero-inch son. And then there's this guy they call Weasel, who is kind of handsome-ish, almost 50s, kind of Italian, kind of heartthrobish looking guy, but he's got a weaselly nose, I guess. He was apparently Weasel Podolski was his name. That's such a Polish, Jewish kind of name. But yeah, he was apparently played by an actor who was really known for pornographic films. And he said that this is the only movie he ever made that he regretted making.
Oh, wow.
Yes, he 100% regretted it. Part of it was because David Hess kind of stayed in character between takes and Junior the same way. So those two kind of treated the actors playing Mari and Phyllis kind of really badly, and kind of manipulated them into doing some of their more screamy takes and their more emotionally anxious takes. So some of that is not acting, some of that's just real. So apparently, oh gosh, where was it? It's oh man, you even see them walking along, and Krug does this thing that is cinema shorthand for the worst kind of bad guy, which is he takes his cigar and pops a little boy's balloon.
Yeah.
What a jerk. I mean, that's literally stealing candy from a baby, or taking someone's lollipop. It's right up there.
He does a lot of things like that in this film. He just doesn't. I mean, especially the way he treats his son Junior in this film, or even Sadie as nothing more than an object. But an object between him and Weasel that they just share. Shit like that,
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, so Police Radio gives us this horrific picture. There it is. So, like, apparently Krug was in prison for killing 2 priests and a nun.
Yeah.
2 priests and a nun, 2 black and whites, and an extra one just for the heck of it, apparently. And then, if that isn't bad enough, he escapes prison by killing a couple of prison guards, and he kicked the police dog to death.
Yeah.
So he's a dog killer too, which makes you like anxious for the dog in this movie. But don't worry, folks. Everything horrible happens in this movie, but the dog survives. Just letting you know that that little poodle survives this movie. When more than half the cast is dead, that poodle survives. And then let's see, Sadie's described as this animalistic woman, and that's her main thing, apparently. And Weasel apparently is a child molester, according to the police radio. And like, dang, it's just like, oh yeah, it was showing up probably in a kid's balloon. I mean, yeah, it's crazy. So we learn all of this about them. And another funny thing at the end is like there's the police radio says, oh, and they were last seen driving down this highway towards there. You're advised to keep an eye out for them. And then Krug turns out the radio and it's like, yeah, that's good advice. As if to say, we'll make sure we don't go there. Thanks, police radio. For telling us exactly what not to do. So they're driving along, and we're just seeing them interact together and talking about horrific things as if it's like their boring, mundane life.
Yeah. Well, they seem more realistic when they have these type of conversations, but it also adds to the more documentary feel. And I always kind of question why we spend so much time with these characters, but and maybe you can answer that question for me. I mean, we spend a lot of time with these characters as opposed. That's another thing that just kind of I don't know. I'll get your opinions a little later. But we spend a lot of time with these characters as opposed to the Mari and Phyllis characters, and of course their parents. It's a weird shift for me. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, well, well, I mean, there are certain filmmakers why they do that. Like Rob Zombie does that simply because he's not an awful human being. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but deep down, as a storyteller, he is naturally more sympathetic and empathetic with the bad guys, the killers, the freaks, the whatever, is whoever is outside society. Those are the people that Rob Zombie likes. I don't think you can make that argument with Wes Craven because I don't think Craven even would. Yeah, no, he was such a square, so I don't think I don't get that. I think what it was I think he was I think as a writer he was probably, or a co-writer, because I don't think he wrote the script entirely. I think he was slightly bored by the parents in this movie, which is okay because they are very kind of flat characters.
Yes.
And in a weird way, so is Mari and Phyllis. I mean, we at least know what they want. They want to go and have fun. They want to do the things teenage girls do. And they want to, Mary especially, it's her birthday. I don't know if we mentioned that, but it is her 17th birthday. And she wants to go out to this concert, which I think is funny, by the way, that the band that she wants to go see is called Bloodlust, which I thought, oh, this is Black Sabbath. And then I realized, oh no, apparently it's not Black Sabbath. It's supposed to be an analog for Alice Cooper, because they mention like when they said who they want to, they tell their parents where they're going to go and what they're going to see, and the dad's like, "Oh, you're going to see that? I heard that they killed a chicken on stage." And he's like, "Yeah, it was just a gag, But but apparently Alice Cooper did rip a chicken in half on stage in one of his shows.
I think so too.
Yeah, so that's how I found out about that. But to me, that's an interesting bit of detailing, because this movie, I feel like you cannot separate this movie from its era. We use the term product of its time.
Yeah.
This movie really is not just a product of its time. It kind of is its times. It's a living embodiment of the late 60s, early 70s. In fact, I feel like this movie leans more towards the 60s.
Yes.
yeah, it feels much more like the spirit of the 60s. It feels more like the disenchanted 60s going into the 70s. Kind of like the same kind of mood and feel of like Easy Rider,
Mm.
where it's that same kind of what is America really now that we're in the Vietnam era? And mark my words, folks, this movie is all about Vietnam. Let's face it. In the end, Wes Craven has come out and said it is really all about Vietnam and the violence of Vietnam and trying to um, look at violence in a fresh way and try to deter people from all kinds of violence because we had a government that was getting America into an unjust war and flooding the news with images of violent um, death from atrocities that were being committed on both sides in the war, mostly ours, but yeah, some other sides too. Dead soldiers and dead VC, all was being piped into your living room every night. I do think it's interesting that they do. Krug and Company, as another title for this movie was Krug and Company. Krug does cut the TV. It cuts the wires to the TV so that they won't see any news footage of them. But I do think it's interesting that Craven destroys the one thing that was piping violence into people's homes every day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of yeah. But so yeah, but then they kind of use but then the father kind of uses those cut wires to make a booby trap, which becomes kind of a trope. Like there's a couple of Wes Craven tropes in this movie that become tropes later, but he did it first here. Like, I mean, getting ahead of ourselves here, but there's a nightmare sequence in this movie that caught me off guard. And then there is a booby trap sequence in this movie, just like Nightmare on Elm Street. They make booby
eyes.
And what? Hills Have Eyes? Yes, yes, that too. They might, and I guess do they do it in People Under the Stairs as well? I don't remember. I never saw that all the way through, so I don't know.
I'd have to think about that. There are booby traps in there, I believe, but I don't know if Fool, the main character, sets a booby trap in the house. I think they're just booby traps in the house for people who wander in places they're not supposed to.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
remember if he sets any himself though, so I have to think about that when we watch that. So
yeah. But I feel like this is really like it's not really about the counterculture. That's one thing this movie doesn't really do. It's not about counterculture. I feel like it's about, on some level, it's about Wes's disillusionment with America and traditional American values, but at the same time, deep in his heart, in his Baptist heart, in his lapsed Baptist heart, realizing that something is very wrong with the answer that the counterculture provided to the conservative, mostly white Christian values. That like what we had was not right, but what we are getting is even worse. I think is maybe what he was unintentionally getting to. Because what's funny here is like you have the beginning where they're going to the concert. They're like, "Oh, we're going to see Bloodlust," and then like as a birthday present, I think it's her mother or her father. I don't know which one it does it. I think it's her father. Her father gives her this necklace that was very expensive, although it looks pretty cheap to me. But anyway, it's this very expensive peace sign.
uh-huh.
I guess it's solid gold. Maybe that's what it makes it expensive. But and she wears it around her necklace. And this movie treats this peace sign like a marvelous and terrible object, and not just like it treats it almost like a crucifix.
Yeah.
And it ends up being a thing that sets the third act in motion.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I feel like there's kind of this, and because it's the peace sign, I think it's representing sort of the disillusionment with the hippie movement and how all that came crashing to a halt when the Manson family murders happened. So I think this movie is about Vietnam and the Manson family murders. Because once those crazy hippies up in Spawn Ranch started massacring people and killing Sharon Tate and cutting out her unborn child and saying, kill the pigs on their wall, that was it. Because like all of their parents' worst fears came true. Just like all of Mary's parents' worst fears came true in this movie.
Well, yeah, I think part of my my look into this film is also the fact that you have this almost perfect idealized family unit that were presented at the very beginning. And even the Mari character, who's supposed to be this almost virgin quality type of character, because she is a virgin in the movie. I actually mentioned that. But one of the first things we see before they get to the town where they're supposed to be going to see this concert is the fact that they stop while walking through the woods to get this bottle of liquor that they've been hiding, and they drink a couple of shots of that before they end up going into the town to look for actual drugs before they go to the concert. So very beginning, you're presented with almost the idealized American system, American values in this own their own property out in the middle of nowhere. But they have a really nice house. They have a surprise. They have a birthday party for their daughter, but she's going out, and it's like the perfect family unit before all this stuff just gets thrust upon them at the very last, and it's all destroyed within a day. Um,
Yeah, and did you notice how like Eden like all of the woods are before all this happens? Like there's so many lingering beautiful shots of that
yes,
duck pond.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Wes
These guys
Craven
have,
loves those ducks, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I noticed all that when I was on the rewatch. Like, this, I still think that this has a very realistic and documentary type of feel to it, as opposed to what he would do in The Hills Have Eyes later, by still borrowing some of those story elements, like we've already mentioned, in this film for that film. But I think for me, this was not nearly as hard hitting as The Hills Have Eyes because of the humor in it. I think there's this sense that Wes Craven wants to add humor to the fact that this is a story essentially about rape and victimization of innocents and young people. And that's why there's humor in this one as opposed to The Hills Have Eyes, which we talked about in another podcast episode, where there is no humor in that film. And I was kind of I in that episode I kind of asked the question, what was going through, what do we think was going through Wes Craven's mind between this film and that film, when there is humor in this film that seems really off-putting, as opposed to The Hills Have Eyes, where there is no humor, and this film was extremely successful. So why would he cut the humor out?
I think here's the thing. I've been thinking about that. I was thinking about that as I was watching this movie, because I think you're really understating it, Kevin. This movie doesn't just have humor. This movie has cartoonishly broad sitcom level sequences in this movie. It is goofy, goofy as all get out. I mean, there's really nothing else I can use to describe it. And there's like very abrupt tones and shifted tones in this movie. And I think there's several things that go into that. Number one is, let's not forget that Wes Craven is and was, he's dead now, unfortunately. And actually, he's been dead for 10 years. Can you believe that? Like 10, 12 years. And we're still celebrating the man. Yeah. But let's not forget that he was an ignorant artist. So, and I think I said in the interview I saw with Mick Garris, he reinforced the fact that he had no idea what he was doing. He said, I had no idea how to make a horror movie. I saw one, and that's all he knew. And all he knew was the classic art and, what little Disney movies and stuff that he grew up with. That's when the one Bergman movie he probably saw, which is The Virgin Spring. That's all he had was these art films he saw, and he put all that together, and he was just winging it most of the time. He was experimenting. So this is an experimental movie. Some things work really well, and some things do not work very well, because he was figuring it out as he was going. And that kind of adds to the improvisational nature of this movie. In fact, I think what was happening at the time. Oh, and by the way, the second thing I think, before I forget, the second thing kind of contradicts what I said about the first thing.
Okay.
It may be. I mean, now that I think about it, it may be an unintended effect. But I think it's possible that yes, Wes Craven probably didn't know what he was doing half the time, but I think some of the time he had to have known a little bit because I feel like he put the humor in there the way that he did, knowing full well the extremes he was going to go. In fact, I mean, we'll get into it later, but like, there's lots more extreme stuff in this movie that did not make the final cut. There's going to be much more mutilation of Phyllis's body that was going to go on, but they didn't end up filming it because the actress playing Sadie just did not have the stomach for it. Um, so I think what the humor does in the final, okay, let me preface that. What the humor does in the first half of this movie, I do think it goes way over and way too much at a certain point. But in the first half, and with all the domestic bliss stuff, what that does is I feel like it disarms the audience. It completely and totally disarms you. Because remember when this movie came out. Remember that this is nothing. There hasn't been a movie like this when it came out. I mean, this movie barely qualifies as a horror movie. I mean, people people had no idea what they were getting into unless they saw that trailer. And then they thought they were going to watch the scariest movie ever. And then they get there, and what are they watching? A couple of Keystone cops bumbling around, girls cavorting in the forest with duck ponds and drinking wine, talking about budding breasts and feeling like a woman for the first time in our lives, and wearing peace necklaces and trying to score some grass on the while eating ice cream at a parlor. This is like the first 30 minutes of this movie, and you are thinking, this is the scariest. What is this? What am I freaking watching? This is an after school special. So I think it just dawned on me the closest thing I could think of to a modern audience would get. This reminds me of my experience of seeing Takashi Miike's Audition for the first time. Because I watched Audition late at night on the Independent Film Channel after reading a review of it in Entertainment Weekly, and I thought, oh, I'll just watch the first half of this and go to sleep because the movie started about 12:30 at night. Spoilers. I didn't get to sleep that night until about 3:30 in the morning because I ended up watching the whole thing. And that movie does something that almost no horror movie today is allowed to do, which is take its time and start off almost in a completely different genre. Because Audition makes you think that this is a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, I think, maybe intentionally, maybe unintentionally, makes you think that this is a goofy, funny, cheap, cheesy after-school special type drama. And doesn't let you think otherwise until, I think, 43 minutes into a 90-minute plus movie. And that is bold. Maybe not that bold for the time, because like I said, it was an age when people were experimenting, man. They were doing all kinds of things, and people's attention spans were a little bit higher back then.
Mm-hmm.
But this movie, I think, was done that way to kind of disarm you, so that when the shocking stuff happens, when the violent stuff happens, which was stuff that most normal audiences had not seen before, unless you'd seen like a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie. But even then, the gore in this movie was innovative because Wes Craven specifically mixed the blood with some blue dye so that it looked realistic. Blood up until this time had been very kind of paint-like and bright orange or like too bright red. But this is the first time we have seen blood and a little bit of gore look real. And the way it's staged, the way it's shot, it is harrowing. And it's even more harrowing by the fact that the way it's shot, like a documentary, and with the cast doing their improvisational stuff, like the tension just boils off the screen once they actually get to that stuff. But you got to get through a lot of other stuff to get there. So your mileage may vary. I mean, look, I got here. This movie doesn't just have comedy. This movie has songs. There's songs in this movie like that are made for it. And that's something that I think might put off a lot of people. I don't know about you, Kevin, but I feel like the songs in this movie um, might make people feel like this is not this is way like awkwardly inappropriate.
I think this is the time period in which the film was made. I got
Yes.
the feeling that this was something like Easy Rider, where they were very liberal with the way they presented the story and the way they let it flow, and that's one of the reasons why we spent so much time with with Krug and his crew, um, as opposed to spending it with the other characters. Like, really, the parents are they're not in it a whole hell of a lot. Yet they become the entire protagonist that we're following in the third act. Um,
Oh yeah, that's kind of a thing I think. Now that I think about it, that's kind of like sort of like what Hitchcock did with Psycho. He kills his main character in the first 20 minutes.
yeah, but then the rest of the film, where it becomes a weird little oh shit, it's kind of weird structurally, because we're both seeing a story from Norman Bates and then of course Marion Crane's sister, as she tries to figure out what the hell happened to her sister. So this film is very odd in the way it is structured. It makes it much more interesting, but when we get to the point where the two girls are being raped and brutalized and thrown in the trunk and then driven out to, like, you would think that they would have either been killed and left there in the apartment or just left there on their own devices, because these characters were escaping anyways, so there was no reason for them to take the girls with them. um
Unless they just really liked them, which they don't. There's no indication of that in the story.
no.
However, it's like there is kind of a weird time jump because like the first bit of atrocities happen in that apartment
Hmm.
where poor Phyllis. I feel like Phyllis gets it worse than Mary does. Honestly, I feel like poor Phyllis gets it so much worse. Like they ravage her body in more ways than one, so much more than Mary gets.
Yeah.
Like she well, I mean, even Sadie is all like apparently bi and like
Yes, I
really
got that too.
wants to get in on the raping action, which in the uncut version of this movie she does. Um, but they cut that for this version that I saw, thankfully. But the like she's grabbing her Phyllis's breasts so that Krug can't see them when they cut open her shirt, and all of the atrocity there is just centered around her, but Mary just kind of is forced to watch.
Hmm.
But then this is where Craven kind of diverts a little bit from the documentary ethos because there's a fade out. We don't see what happens to Phyllis,
No.
so I think that's kind of interesting. I was like, huh, that's odd. I was expecting something horrific to happen here, but no, we don't. I mean, it's still horrific to left to your imagination, but what's even more horrific to be left to your imagination is the fact that the next scene is the next morning, and you know it's the next morning because there's a title card at the bottom that says "the next morning." ...
Yeah.
Which is not in some versions of this movie, by the way. There's I think there's a European there's a British version where they cut that title card out.
That seems weird.
It is weird, isn't it? They also like completely re-edit the credits where it doesn't cut to that jaunty Smoking the Bandit type song during the cast montage at the end. And there's also no
It's also
character
weird.
and there's also no character names. And the music just starts to a black screen when the credits would be. So uh some of you might have memories of that version out there. If you do, sound off in the comments.
Interesting.
But yeah, so like this is so they stuff them in the trunk, and the nearest I can tell is, yeah, you're saying like, why would they do this? Like, why wouldn't they just kill them there? Well, I think we have to step back for a moment. We have to step back for a moment and realize and think about the pathology of these people. These are thrill killers. Krug and his band are not anybody who is not pathological. They they don't they it's like Heath Ledger said in The Dark Knight. We don't have a plan. We just do things.
Well, you bring up a good thing I didn't think about. Really, they are spree kill. I mean, they don't have a plan. It's just spree. They just kill. They just do whatever they want to whenever the impulse drives them, which makes it
Yeah.
very dangerous. They remind me of Henry from Henry the Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Yes. Yes. Although Henry Lee Lucas ended up being mostly a hoax. He only killed like 2 people. But the drifter kind of ideology, or this American myth of a serial killer that just goes, or a band of serial killers that just goes from town to town. This is the embodiment of that. This is everything that Middle America fears, writ large in these people. But I think also the humor of seeing them riding in a car with the girls in the trunk. Well, Sadie is reverse cowgirl on Krug, fully clothed, and talking about, what do you think is the biggest sex crime of the century? And who's the best serial killer? I rather admire the Boston Strangler. I thought he was pretty cool. I always admired him. And
Not just that, but the music that's playing while they're doing.
the music is like a Smokey and the Bandit type thing, but the music and the thing about that song, and it blew me away when I was listening to it. I was like, this song is clearly bespoke to this movie because listen to the lyrics. Oh, Weasel Jr., Sadie, and Krug out for the day on the Collinwood Brood. Out for the day with the Collinwood Brood. That's the girls in the trunk. Out for the day for some fresh air and sun. Oh, let's have some fun with these 2 lovely children. And off them as soon as we're done. These are the lyrics to this jaunty song, which, by the way, speaking of this song, there's like 3 original songs in this movie. Another one, the really mournful, folksy one called The Road Leads to Nowhere, plays several times in this movie. But all of those songs are sung by one man, and that is David Hess, who plays Krug. He apparently had dulcet tones and probably could have had a singing career if he wanted to. But I don't know how, but he ended up getting offered to sing all these songs in this movie.
I do remember that. I do remember that somewhere. I do remember him being a singer, and he did songs for this, but I did not think about it when I was rewatching it.
So in a weird way, you could almost think of these scenes as being the songs or this song at least, this is the song that runs in his head. That maybe this sequence is from his point of view.
Wow.
But yeah, I don't know. But I think some of the humor is, and I think sequences like this don't just prove to disarm you, but I think they prove to be. I think some of it may have been like Wes also like hedging his bet a little bit because like at this point we know that we're in for something horrible. We don't know how horrible, but I think some of those goofy enough, and I think I can definitely say that for the goofiness that happens with the cops later when the crap really does hit the fan in the woods. That I think some of that stuff was designed to ease the tension, to diffuse the tension, because even in this current form of this movie, allegedly, I don't know how true this is, but allegedly, when this movie was released, in whatever form it was, I'm not even sure if this is the right form. I'm not even sure if we can really even judge the movie that made this happen to people. But apparently, when Last House on the Left was released initially, people fainted. People had heart attacks.
I do remember hearing that.
People vomited.
Yeah. Rumors that happened. Same with the
I don't know. I mean, my golly, if you or your grandparent is out there in the audience, folks, and you are listening to us on YouTube, sound off in the comments if you were one of those people or knew somebody for whom that happened about this movie. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, we know that sort of thing happened with The Exorcist years later, so it's not it's not unlikely. But this is the early 70s we're talking about. This is pre-internet. It's very hard to verify almost any of this. So I think some of this might just be myth and legend.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I do want to bring up something else before I forget about it, because we mentioned the bumbling cops in this film, and I wanted to kind of elaborate on the fact that they remind me so much of the bumbling cops in Halloween 5.
Oh,
Michael Myers. We did a podcast episode on that film, and we could not understand why those characters are in the film, because they just seem so out of place. And when I was rewatching this film, the cops seem so out of place for me here, even though one of them is played by the one
Marty Cove.
Cove.
My jaw was on the floor when I saw him. I was like, is that is that Kreese from Cobra Kai?
Yeah, that's the same thing I had too. I had that epiphany. I was like, dude, I remember him being in this movie, but he looks so young.
Yes.
Movie.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
yeah.
And apparently he was offered the role of Krug. He was going to be him. And can you imagine how different this movie would have been if it was him doing all this stuff? But
I think he would have been too young.
and too handsome. And too handsome. I feel like Krug needs to be an ugly dude.
I like David Hess as this role. I mean, yeah, David Hess was perfect for it. Unless they got Joe Spinell, he would have been another one. You familiar with who Joe Spinell is?
Oh, yeah, Maniac. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know Joe.
Yeah, he would have been that grungy looking guy too. He probably would have been perfect for this movie too.
Yeah, but they wanted somebody. They wanted somebody tall and imposing for this movie, and that's why they were going with Cove at first. But Marty Cove was like, "No, I want to be the goofy deputy." But you know who I think would be really good for this? My roommate, David Hess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he suggested David.
Now that's an interesting story for this film. I did not know that. That is very interesting.
Yeah. So these deputies kind of spend most of their time
Well,
either.
to be honest with you, they start off as being normal cops. It's when their car breaks down on them that the tone
dude, no. It doesn't break down. They forgot to gas it up, which is the most unprofessional, stupid freaking thing you can do, I think, as an officer of the law. Your vehicle, your one vehicle in a small town. You did not gas it. Well, then again, now that I think about it, this just occurred to me. Wasn't this during the gas shortage in the 70s? Wasn't there was a gas shortage at one point because of
I don't know.
I think I don't know when that happened. Was that the early 70s or the late 70s? I don't know.
For some reason, I do believe that there was a gas shortage, but I don't know what year or when that happened.
Okay, well then if that's the case, then maybe it's not such a bad thing after all. Maybe that's why they were so cheap to keep it at least half a tank. But the geography of this movie is weird too, because this house is not at the end of a suburban street. It's way out in the boonies. So when they hear the last whereabouts of Krug and Company on the radio, and they think, wait a minute, that's nearby us. Oh crap, we should go, because they see the car. And they think, oh crap, that's that car we just casually passed by after we met with Mary's parents, saying, oh, well, don't worry, we'll do whatever we can to find her. And then they go by the car and they're like, hey, isn't that interesting? That just break down on the side of the road. It's like, nah, that's not going to help us find Mary. And they just go right past it. And then they're like, oh, wait, maybe that's it. And then they get into their car and they're not even halfway there, seemingly. And Cove is like, oh, wait, what's happening? You didn't fill it with gas. Oh. And so then comes this long sequences, plural, of them getting out of their car, trying to hitchhike. That doesn't work because the people who try to seemingly stop for them, are a bunch of hippies in the trucks who hate cops.
Yeah, of course, people hate each other.
Yeah, and one of those hippies is played by Steve Miner, apparently.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, and then they try to get aboard. This is the sequence that I feel like should have been cut. They try to get aboard a pickup truck filled with chickens.
Yeah, and it goes on for too long.
And this old black lady is in there She's great. She's played by Wes Craven's maid, apparently, or a maid that he knew. So this is like her only movie. But they can't get in there, and they try to get her to like take out some of the chickens, and she's like, "How much do you weigh?" That's like 15 chickens. I can't afford that to lose that. And then they try to get on top of the roof of their truck, and they get thrown off by centrifugal force and fall on the ground. It's like, dude, you're cops. You have guns. I know it's terrible, but my golly, you know what's at stake? Kind of. You know what kind of criminals you're after? Mostly. Just take out your gun and get the old black lady out of there and just commandeer her vehicle. That's like cop cliche 101. You can commandeer anything.
But they're
You
in the
can
country and they know this woman.
apparently.
That's the funny thing about this. Like, they refer to her by name. They know her. And it's because it's a small town. In
Yeah.
theory,
And apparently there's a version of this movie where they cut that scene out. They cut that scene out, and I think they put something else in. I can't remember what it was. But yeah, there's like several versions of this movie, and one of those they cut out. And I'm like, oh, well, that's nice. That would have made it a slightly better movie. Because I feel like that's the one time where like
comedy goes a little bit too much.
it goes way too much and it goes way too long, and we would have been just fine just seeing them walk.
Yeah, yeah. That's all we really need to see was see them walk. But yes,
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons why I want to bring that up because in point of fact, the original version I saw of this movie, if there was multiple versions of this movie, I may not have seen that version. This version I currently saw with the comedy in it, I could have saw the version where her scene is cut out because I didn't remember it being as funny as it was when I rewatched it. And I was like, that's been bothering me. And I was like, dude, I don't remember this movie being this funny.
Or maybe you just didn't get some of the jokes. I
Uh,
mean, let's according to this here, the listening across the pond. Oh wait, no. Oh yeah, there's some notes here I made about the different versions. Like according to IMDb, oh, we got the German cut that's only an hour and something long. The MGM DVD. For a while, the best you could get of this movie on DVD was the MGM DVD. It was the most complete version of it. Before that, there was one that had. Oh, it was the Anchor Bay version. There was an Anchor Bay edition of this movie that probably had that cut out. I think it also may have been the version that had the weird credits too. It's a shame, Mr. J. What?
that may be the version I had on VHS because I had a lot of Anchor Bay VHS because I used to collect them back in the day. That
Yeah,
could have been why.
that's probably it. That's probably it. In fact, there were still, even until fairly recently, there were still some quote unquote uncut versions of this movie that still has stuff omitted from it. Up until recently, the MGM DVD that I think was released in 2008 was the most complete version that you could get. Now, Mr. Watkins, Dave Watkins, wherever you are out there, I wish you came here because I would love to ask you, did anybody release a 4K of Last House on the Left with all the footage back in it? I don't know. It would have been good to know if he'd showed up.
There probably isn't a 4K. That's why he didn't come on here.
He wasn't interested. If you don't got a 4K, man, I'm not interested. I'm out. I'm out. But yeah, like I said, the version that's on Tubi, which is what I watched, is an hour and 24 minutes. But I don't know if they included the ad runtime in that. I don't know. But I feel like I still feel like I was missing something in it because like, and I guess maybe this might be a good time to get into it. And
Go ahead.
but like I was certain. I was fairly certain when I watched this. I was like, when it gets really hardcore, and they stab Phyllis, and they, reach in, and and I could swear that there was more of that. You know what I mean? When they pull out the guts, because it's only there for like a fraction of a second. And then I was like, ooh, but wait a minute. I thought there was more to that. I could swear I saw more to that. Unlike I think it was on like one of those uh not the scariest movie moment. I think it actually might have been the scariest movie moments list. Remember when that came out? Like they had
Sounds familiar to me, but I may have watched it, but don't remember it though.
yeah, like TNT or TBS or something did like a scariest movie moments of all time list. And this movie was on that list. And I think they showed footage from that from that moment when they finally kill Phyllis. And I thought for sure that I saw more of it in that TV special than I did
Hmm.
in this one. But maybe I did, maybe I didn't, because like allegedly Wes Craven thought he went too far and he went back and cut some stuff out, which I don't know if that's true because that doesn't sound like Wes Craven. That doesn't sound like Wes Craven I know, but maybe I don't know. But another part of this movie, but I'll digress for a second because I'll kick myself in the butt if I don't mention this because this is a huge part of the lore of this movie.
Okay.
Was that the violence in this movie was so extreme for the time that every time Wes Craven submitted this movie to the MPAA, they kept giving it an X rating.
Hmm.
No matter what he did to it, no matter how many cuts he made to it, no matter how much he trimmed out of the stabbing and the rape and whatever, no matter what seconds he did, it was always X X X X. So one day, allegedly, Wes Craven took a print of the movie himself to he somehow found out maybe through Sean S. Cunningham they where they spliced the film, the green film card with the R rating on it. He found out where they spliced that on at the MPAA. So he took the print to there, just went up to the girl at the counter and it's like, hey, I gotta take this in to get spliced on. Where did they put on the movie ratings? And she's like, oh yeah, it's just down the hall, third thing to the right. And he's like, okay, cool. She didn't check him at all. He just went, just dressed up as delivery guy basically, and went and spliced the R rating on himself.
Yeah.
And that was the version they released out in theaters, with which had all the footage put back in it, with an R rating that was just slapped on by Wes Craven himself. So technically speaking, this movie never ever got an actual MPAA rating.
Interesting.
Yeah. So anyway, that's that. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, like I said, when we get to the point where they've got the girls, they take them out into the woods, and it's not like I said before. It's not just that they are violated and murdered; they are humiliated.
Humiliated. I want to get to that part.
Yeah, they are humiliated and tortured, basically, but they're psychologically tortured
Hmm.
by Krug and them just for the fun of it. Um,
Which is
it
harder
gets
for Mari because she's the one that we definitely know is a virgin as opposed to Phyllis, who we don't.
well, it's not just that, but like they're best friends,
Hmm.
and um, and I read somewhere that the actress playing Phyllis was apparently had grown up in a very like rough urban neighborhood, so I guess she had experienced trauma similar to this in her point because like there's a point where Krug, first of all, Krug forces her to urinate herself, which was another sequence that is often cut in the British versions of this movie, which I don't know how that goes when you cut that part out. They also cut out the part where um, Junior says, "Hey man, don't kill him! Don't kill him! It's not. You're gonna kill somebody, man. Don't do it. Why don't you just make it with each other?" And then Sadie goes, "Yeah, that's a great idea."
Hmm.
There's some versions that cut that out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, which would be weird because of what happens next. Because they disrobe. They're forced to disrobe, and as they're forced to hold each other, and the camera is like not right up in them. Like the nudity is actually fairly tasteful in this moment. It's like the camera is filming through the trees. It's watching but hiding, which is an interesting thing. Like Wes Craven talked about that on with Mick Garris. He said that his 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 way that he shot those moments was kind of reminiscent of like his eyes point of view of watching his parents fight when he was a kid. Because like when he was watching, he would like watch them through like a door that's creaked open a little bit, or around the corner of a hall, or like, with your hands over your eyes, because you don't want to see your parents fight.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this kind of cautious watching but not watching, this watching but hiding. So that's the way he filmed this, and it has that feel to it. And like, this is like all the straight drama stuff doesn't really work in this movie that much. And of course, the comedy is really, really hit or miss, mostly miss. But once these sequences start, for better or worse, this is the stuff that really lands. It's the stuff that you don't want to see the most, but it's the stuff that Wes actually filmed beautifully and filmed really effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But they're coming together, they're coming down, and Krug's forcing them to lay down and do what they're, to each other. And you get this little, if you're listening closely, you'll get Mari kind of just emotionally losing it,
Mm-hmm.
and Phyllis is trying to talk her down like a really good friend, and just saying things like, it's okay, it's just me and you. It's just me and you. There's nobody else here. There's just me and you. That's it. Just don't look. It's just me and you. And apparently that was improvised by the actress playing Phyllis. And I'm like, again, that's probably something that comes from her upbringing. It felt so real in that moment that that's something somebody would say in that moment. And yeah. And then we keep cross cutting from this to either the parents worrying and wondering and pacing and pondering what could possibly have happened to our little girl. And the goofy cops trying to, find them, trying to get to the house. And then we cut back to this.
Well,
And
it's a
it's,
very odd cross cutting between all this.
yeah, isn't it?
Because the parents are not. It's like a means to keep the parents within the story when they really aren't that very prevalent in the first half of the film. Um, and then of course the bumbling cops who are supposed to be the people who are looking for the criminals, so to speak, and just kind of stumble into everything else. Like it's an odd juxtaposition for me, but I understand why it's there. I mean, if you don't have the cops at the very end, like I said, it would have played better without the cops at the end. If you don't have the cops at the end, then you might as well cut every scene with fucking cops. Doesn't make any sense to have them if there's no like resolution to what they're doing. um
Mm-hmm.
and the parents, obviously you want to give them, I think, in my opinion, you're wanting to show them as a very normal family the first third of the movie, and then everything that happens in the second act of the movie is supposed to be their reaction to their daughter not being home when she's supposed to, and how normal parents might react to their sudden disappearance of their daughter and everything that they go through with that. So, even though they're very normal parents, so to speak, until Krug and group are at their house and the mother is the first one to start putting some pieces together, which I found very
Yeah.
interesting. That's the mother that starts putting the pieces together. I
Oh,
thought, I
yeah.
thought that was very interesting that she's the one that does that. So,
Yeah, yeah. And I am glad that, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here, but I am glad that the necklace is not the one thing that makes her think that there's other things. Like as soon as she sees, because there's a point where Mari is trying to cleverly bargain her way out of the situation by trying to make Junior think she wants to be
mhm.
her friend. And she even like gives him her necklace, her peace necklace. And he's like, I don't want that. I don't want that. No, no, no. You're just trying to get free. And she's like, no, no, I want to be your friend. Here, take it. And she puts it around his neck, and he keeps it.
Mhm.
And that's what her mother sees. But I only say that because I was like, come on. there's only one gold piece necklace like that in the early 70s. Like, how could she possibly think, oh, that was the one that I gave Marek? I mean, come on, it's not like it was some kind of custom jewelry. This you probably could have gotten that at Walmart back in the day. I mean,
It,
come on.
well, it's very coincidental. And it doesn't really, it's very odd that's part of what drives the parents to do what they do, because essentially what happens is that's part of the impetus for them to leave the house to go search for their daughter. But in reality, why would they be searching for their daughter? Because they wouldn't know where she would be at all anywhere. If they left the bodies at the apartment, they would be wandering the woods for no apparent reason. No one told them where Mari was, so it was really, when we get to that part, it was very odd for me that that's how they try and have a resolution with that whole aspect of the story.
Well, if I remember correctly, what happens is, and like I said, it's not just the necklace. It's the necklace, and then she goes through their stuff and finds the bloody,
Yeah, yeah.
shirts, and then she hears them talking about, yeah, let her figure out that we killed their kid, and like dumped her in the pond.
Did she overhear that?
Yes, she does. And what's weird about the sound, I know this because I noted it in my notes. What's weird about the sound of that moment is that it doesn't sound like muffled speech coming from the other room. It almost sounds like its voice is heard over a telephone. It sounds like scratchy bad audio over a telephone.
Okay.
So I think it was just like really bad editing or really cheap editing, or they couldn't figure out how to mix it to make it sound like real muffled speech from another room, or they were afraid that nobody would be able to hear it and understand it. I don't know. But it doesn't sound natural. I just thought it sounded really unnatural. But yeah.
Okay.
So
So
that
that's
was
something I
that.
missed. So that's something I missed when I rewatched it. I kept thinking that I was wondering, why would they know to go search right there near her house, right by the lake, and find her there?
It is kind of funny though that and if this movie were released nowadays in this form, we would think that whole little bit was studio notes. It's like somebody in a test audience said, "Now, how does she know to do that?" Well, you gotta let's ADR some stuff. So that was probably a very late, last minute thing Wes Craven did, and he probably thought the same thing. He's like, "Wait a minute, we forgot to put that in there. That's some connective tissue that we need." Speaking of connective tissue. Oh, awful segue. Uh, so, like I said, I think Phyllis gets it worse
Yes.
than poor Mary. I think Phyllis gets it worse. She is, she tries to make a run for it. Oh, by the way, I do think it's kind of weird and ironic that Phyllis earlier says when they are leaving to go for the concert, I think for whatever reason they're talking about um, like liberal attitudes towards bodies or something, and she said something like, she said, if God had meant for us to if God had meant for us not to if God had meant for us to not cavort around naked, he wouldn't have invented he would have invented clothes, basically. Which is ironic because of what happens to her. She gets stripped naked, and they leave them naked because Krug is like, yeah, I gotta go get something. I need something that can like chop a tree down or something. He's like, I need to go get a tool because their car is also experiencing trouble
Yeah.
because Junior apparently flooded the engine with oil or something. So now they gotta fix their daggum car. Cars just don't work in this movie at all.
Not,
But yeah. But so Krug goes off, and Phyllis takes advantage of the situation by persuading Weasel and Junior to let her dress. So she gets dressed again. She's like, I'll take my clothes off as soon as Krug gets back. So here she is, like a spouse. Earlier she was like espousing be all bohemian and naked, and now here she is, bohemian and naked. All she wants to do is get her clothes back on and run.
mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what she does. She runs, and they have this whole great little chase sequence through the forest. And she seems to outsmart them. She's so much smarter than they are. And yet, in spite of all of this, she still ends up pretty much right back where they started.
So odd.
Yeah, but it's kind of like that nightmare logic that we talked about earlier in another movie where you can't get away from the thing that terrorizes you. And I will say, there's like two pretty effective jump scares where Krug just kind of pops out of nowhere with his
Yeah.
machete. That was pretty like, ooh, wow, okay. That's what qualifies this movie to be a horror movie. Those little bits right there.
Well, Phyllis almost escapes, and you see the road behind her, where she could have almost got to some type of safety, but she doesn't exactly. It's such a downer with what Krug does to her. So yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like I know she goes. It's a little. It's a little heavy-handed that she runs through a cemetery in the
Yes.
middle of the woods. But then again, I thought, we live in Georgia. We know there's cemeteries everywhere. There's cemeteries in the middle of the woods everywhere. So
Yep.
that tracks. That tracks. That seems realistic.
In the South, there are lots of cemeteries like that. Uh,
Yeah,
I
for
only
sure.
Yeah, there's lots of cemeteries where you would think that there should not be cemeteries, but there are.
Yeah, like there's cemeteries in the back of a Walmart, backwoods behind a Walmart somewhere. But yeah, but like, but not just the cemetery though. I don't know if you noticed this, but they're right as they're about to stab her. There's like a she's coming towards the road, and there's this old, beat up, abandoned 1920s like almost Model T looking car. I don't know if you noticed that, but they don't really show it very much, but it's there.
Hmm.
It's rusty and broken down. And I thought to myself, ooh, maybe production found this. And Wes Craven thought, ooh, how cool would it be? Let's shoot our super violent moment, arguably the most violent moment in the whole movie, with this car from like the Depression. Because I like to believe, I don't know if Wes intended for this to do, but I like to believe that that was kind of a homage to Bonnie and Clyde, which at the time was considered the most violent movie America ever produced.
Hmm.
Wouldn't it be neat if he did that on purpose, as if to say, you think Bonnie and Clyde was violent? You ain't seen nothing yet.
Oh my God. Yeah, well, this movie has a lot going for it when you get past the Keystone Cops elements of it.
Yeah, they just stab her and stab her and stab her in the gut, in the chest. Actually, they cut out a bit. I don't know if they ever filmed it. I don't think they did, but there was supposed to be a bit where they were supposed to cut off her left breast, and Sadie was supposed to eat it. And the actress playing Sadie was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that." Um, there was a scene earlier that they'd filmed where she orally rapes Mary, but that was cut from the final movie. She was all up for that, but cannibalism, she drew the line at. I draw the line at lesbian cannibalism. No, sir.
You have to have
But
you have to have limitations.
I guess. But like I said, I could swear that when Phyllis just collapses, and I swear that the pulling out of that intestine, which looks real, is much longer in the segment that I saw.
Mm.
So I was like a little shocked that it wasn't that long, because I could swear there was more to it than that. But they get so bloody and they get so dirty after they're finished with her, and after Krug, I think, rapes Mari again for the last time, there's this moment that's almost transcendent when all three of them, Junior's not among them, it's just Weasel and Sadie and Krug, and they're looking at their bloody hands,
Yeah.
and Mari has just given up hope, and it's just kind of walking towards the pond. And all three of these horrible, monstrous, awful people are just having a moment of like epiphany, a moment of clarity, where they're wondering about what they have done.
Yep. I
And
saw that because you can see it on Krug's face. It's the only time in the entire movie where you see on his face where he thinks that he may have gone a little bit too far. And this is someone who's killed people before. But
he's
there's
killed two priests and a nun,
yeah,
and this is too far.
Yeah. It's like I didn't remember seeing that originally, but when I rewatched, I was like, oh shit. There's this shot of each of them, and it looks like they almost think that they've gone just a little too far. Uh,
Yeah, and Craven frames their hands, their clothes, or they've got the blood smeared on. Just like the way that he edits it and frames it is just so powerful.
yeah.
It's like the one bit of this movie that just really functions on all eight cylinders.
Mhm.
And what makes it even better is how, like, Marius keeps walking and walking, and without saying a word, Krug, who I think by now is like shirtless and everything, and takes out his gun, his little pea shooter, his six gun, and just aims this indeterminately long period of time. And Mari is in the water, and he shoots her twice,
Yep.
maybe three times. I'm not sure. The gun, the pop of the gun just echoes across the forest, and Mary just kind of lays back in
Mhm.
the water. We don't really see her get shot. There's a reason for that. Um, and she kind of floats with her face up. And it's this beautiful side shot that you see her kind of floating along. And that is where Wes Craven's classical art influence comes from. Because there is a painting, I don't remember the artist's name, but there is a famous like Renaissance painting called Ophelia. And it is depicting the suicide of Ophelia from Shakespeare's Hamlet, because she goes mad and throws herself into the water, into the lake, and the painting shows her floating face up in the water, her dead pale body. And I think Wes was influenced by that painting and decided to restage it in this artful sort of way. And I don't know if you're looking it up on the
I
computer, but
was.
like
I know the painting. As soon as you said you asked for the artist, I was like, who the fuck is the artist for that painting? Dude, I know the painting. I studied the freaking painting. Why do I not remember the artist? So I had to look that one up. It says it's John Everett Malaise. Me.
yes,
Um,
yes.
I because the painting's really famous. So I studied the painting in art history class within college, and now I couldn't remember it. Dude, you brought that up, and I was like, oh, fuck, I know what you're talking about. I see it, and I can't believe I didn't see it or think about it when I saw the movie. I did not think about it, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. I mean, they also like torture Mary psychologically by showing her Phyllis's severed arm, which is
I know it's
cleverly.
crazy, huh?
Yeah. Like I said, Phyllis gets it worse. Like Phyllis gets chopped to pieces, disemboweled on top of all the other stuff before that. And Mary is at least pretty much whole when she dies. I mean, granted, Krug carves his name into her chest, which, yeah, good more evidence for the cops later. Thankfully, it doesn't end up really proving anything. But the like, which by the way, that is one of the things I do remember from that book. That is one of the images. There was a behind the scenes photo of from above looking down at the cuts of Krug on her chest. There was much more blood, but yeah, you could see it more clearly. Which, by the way, I almost think that maybe Tarantino was homaging that with the swastika in the on the Nazis' foreheads in *Inglourious Bastards*. Not sure, but I know Tarantino's a huge fan of this movie, so could be, could be. But yeah, the so that's it. Poor Phyllis is like, just anyways, but like as Mary is about to be killed, there's this kind of glimpse into her brain, I guess, where you hear the Lord's Prayer in her voice. Yes, I think it's her voice. And
She says it. She says it that she's dying in the water.
I don't remember her lips moving while it happened. I thought it was an audio thing that's for the song. Apparently, though, they reused that later. Apparently, it's reused in like one of the night. I think in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. I'm not sure, but Wes did reuse that at some point.
Interesting.
But again, that's his Christian background. They're coming back, and also, I mean, this, I mean, if you know the original story, the Virgin Spring, which comes from like medieval folklore, and Bergman adapted that. The whole point of that story is about the problem of evil from a Christian perspective. The idea of how can a just God allow atrocities? How can a just God allow evil? And specifically, this is human evil. And what makes the Virgin Spring interesting, though, is that in the story, it's not the parents, it's just the father who gets revenge on the criminals, and he kills them, and then regrets it, and then repents of the whole thing, and basically cries out to God, saying, like, I'm gonna make up for this. I'm gonna bury everybody. I'm gonna build a church around this very site where all this happened,
Hmm.
and then as soon as they pick up her daughter's body, which in the story and in the movie she's not mutilated, she's just like conked on the head really hard, and the blood from her head seeps out. But as soon as they remove her head from the ground, all of a sudden a spring of water just comes out from that blood miraculously, and it becomes a stream that's going to become a spring, hence the title, The Virgin Spring.
Hmm.
So at least in that version, there's a redemption to it. But Wes Craven is not at all interested in redemption at all. He's just interested in leaving you numb by the end of this movie.
Yes, the way it ends is definitely you're left numb. But it's an ending that's justified because of the violence upon these parents' daughter.
Yeah, the criminals go to the house because their car still won't work, and they just knock on the door like, "Hey, our car broke down. Can we stay with you guys for the night?" Which I'm
They
like,
want a phone
if
call. They want a phone call or a ride into
but
town.
the phone is broken. Like
Uh,
they keep making a point that the phone is broken, but I could swear earlier when the cops left, they said, "I'm glad your phone is fixed." So I guess there's a continuity error there. I thought their phone was fixed. Apparently, it's not. I don't know, but anyway, but what boggles my mind is that they let them in, these total strangers. And I mean, granted, they change clothes, they make themselves look more respectable. They got, Crow's got a suit and tie on. He greased up his hair to look better. I figured, these are some nice people. I want to look nice. That he doesn't say that, but I can imagine he might. But I thought, man, it's a different time back then,
yeah.
because I don't think anybody would do that nowadays.
Oh no, because we have cell phones everywhere, and yeah, you got Ubers. It's like, yeah, nah, buddy, I could call you an Uber, but that's as far as you're getting from me.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Ah, my gosh. And I like, so like we said, while they're putting them away to bed, poor Junior starts having withdrawals because his dad won't give him his drugs. And that's when they start having the conversation between walls. She notices the thing that the mother notices the necklace around her neck, and that's when that whole thing starts. And we go straight from that to the nightmare sequence, where we forgot to mention that Mary's dad is a doctor, which honestly I was a bit disappointed that they didn't do more medical horror, since he's a doctor. But actually, originally in the original script, now that I think about it, there was a scene instead of the chainsaw, he was supposed to just cut up Krug with a scalpel. But, you know, it's a scalpel, as you in the medical field know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there, scalpels are tiny, and they don't look very impressive. So Sean Cunningham, slasher pioneer, said, "Hey man, you should have it be a chainsaw." And Wes Craven was like, "Oh, come on, that's not gonna work." He's like, "No man, try it. It should be a chainsaw." So he's like, "Okay, let's work towards the chainsaw."
To be honest with you, it is a great visual cue with him. Even though it makes no sense, really, it's a great visual cue to see him pull out a chainsaw. Because it was like it's not what you're expecting at all.
No, it's not at all. It's like what's great though is like the first you have a nightmare where Weasel dreams that that they're dressed that the parents are dressed up as doctors and they're gonna chisel his teeth out of his face,
Yeah, I know.
which is
Got that dream
wild.
sequence when I rewatched that today. Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
And
Yeah,
I forgot this was a thing. Yeah, weird. I thought that's where it starts. I was all like, oh wait, we're starting already. Okay, neat. Like we're starting with this revenge plan already. But nope, it's not. But like apparently, like off screen, they have decided that they're going to enact bloody vengeance on them, and so they start setting up Home Alone style traps to make sure that they don't leave. One of them, of course, is like the father plugging in a frayed cord with some water up the front door, and so that whoever gets there is going to get electrocuted.
this is where our booby traps come into play.
Booby traps, yeah, we love a good booby trap on a Wes Craven movie. So he's got that stuff, he's got other stuff like that, but he tries to kill them in their bed with a double-barreled shotgun. But Krug gets the better of him, turns out the lights, and boom, he shoots, hits nothing. And they chase him out. They got into a huge fist fight, which is pretty neat. Um, but I feel like the only really shocking moment in this whole thing that plays out, I mean, before that, and this moment was told to me by a friend of mine in college who had seen this movie, and I thought it was going to be much more graphic and disgusting than it ended up being, but it was not. Um, the mother ends up making Weasel think that she wants him and says, "Let's go outside. We're gonna
Yep.
go outside." And by the way, I have to say, the day for night stuff in this movie looks pretty good. It really does look like moonlight. And they go outside, and she's like, "Ooh, I like it when you tie a man up. You know, that's kind of my kink." I mean, she doesn't say that, but that's what she's saying. And so he's like, "Yeah, I could do that. I could do you tied up. Yeah." He's still full of himself. So he lets her tie him up, standing up, which is odd. I thought she was gonna tie him to a tree. That would have made more sense.
That's what I
But
thought.
no. Yeah, that's what I thought too. But no, they're standing by the lake, and he's just standing with his legs unrestrained, and his arms restrained. And I have to say, the one bit of comedy in this whole movie that I thought really does work and made me laugh quite a bit
This sequence
was what?
was this sequence here.
Yeah, the zipper. Because I was not expecting that. Oh, they basically pull something about Mary, and I thought, oh, that's funny because I wasn't expecting that. She's like, oh, your little thing got caught in it. He's like, it's not little.
I know.
Oh wow, that's funny. So she somehow gets it out, and by it, you know what I mean. And she eventually gets him a little bit there, and it must have been difficult because by then it's hard. And she bites the thing off and spits it out. You don't see blood on her face though, and you don't see her really spit it out, but you know that's what happens.
Yeah.
And apparently he screams like a girl, and I guess bleeds to death because we never see Weasel again.
Nope. He got
But
he got Lorena Bobbitt before that was a thing.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
Eh,
he could have gone so Wes could have gone so much harder in that moment, but he did not.
well, we have a lot more fun in this. We have a lot more fun watching what happens next. So,
Oh yes. So we have like oh gosh, so they have the fist fight. And during the fist fight, Krug like finally puts it all together in his Neanderthal brain. Like, oh, it's you figured it out. You know who I am. They're like, oh, your daughter was so much tougher than you are. You're a big pussy. And they got Mary's body on the couch because in the interim they've gone out to the lake and found her on the shore. Which, by the way, before I forget, remember I said there was a reason the edit was a little weird out there when she was
yeah.
in the water. Well, apparently she was supposed to survive. In the original cut of this movie, there was supposed to be a pan across the lake while they're washing themselves off, while they're getting the blood off their clothes. There's supposed to be a pan across the duck lake, and it was supposed to show Mary still alive, clinging to the rocks and hiding. She was supposed to live all the way up to the point where she's washed up on the shore and has just enough life in her to tell her parents what happened and then dies. But they cut that out and did some ADR.
So what do you think was the ADR?
When the point where the father is discovering her body and is over and says basically she's dead.
Okay.
Because that wouldn't be in there. I think that was some ADR. But yeah, she was supposed to live up until the very which they did that. They followed through with that a little bit more in the remake apparently.
Yes, for the remake. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, so I guess that's where that comes from. But yeah, so she's like, and I guess that makes more sense what Krug says. Like, she was a lot tougher than you are. She survived up until the last minute. And then, of course, he gets distracted though because Chris Jr. comes in and tries to shoot his dad because he's had enough of his dad's crap. But he's also super strung out and really stressed out. And to me, this was like the most
feels guilty.
Yes, he feels guilty. He's the only one who feels any guilt. And to me, this is weirdly the most shocking moment in the whole movie is when his dad, Krug, goes towards him with the gun, like almost in his face. He's like, "Don't put it at me. Don't put it at me. Point it at yourself. Put it in your mouth. Go ahead. No, go ahead and blow your brains out."
Yeah.
And his acting is so effective in that. It was so intense. I'm like, oh, wow.
Chilling.
And he does it. And poor Weasel blows his own brains out. His dad convinces him to off himself.
Junior. Not Weasel. Yeah, Junior.
Yeah, Weasel's already dead. Weasel's been castrated to death. Yeah. We know this off screen. Ironically, though, I feel like it's Krug who should have been castrated to death, but we'll get to that. So while this little not Oedipal, but like this little kind of King Learish drama is going on, he's completely forgotten about the fact that the dad is still alive. And he goes back and he's like, wait, where'd he go? And I love when they reveal a chainsaw like this, where you hear it before you see it. You just hear. And then he goes down, and Krug looks with the gun down into the basement, this little narrow step, and up comes the dad with the chainsaw, with a little smile on his face, up the basement, which I think is the most terrifying shot in the whole movie. Like, can you imagine being there, seeing that? That would just be like, and the chainsaw is like bright red too.
Yeah, I think I made a note of that too. The color of the chainsaw.
Chainsaw color matters. I know, like I remember some behind the scenes stuff with Scarface. The reason why they went with the yellow chainsaw in Scarface for the chainsaw torture sequence was that Brian De Palma wanted to see the blood splatter on the chainsaw, and it stuck out the most with a yellow color.
Oh wow!
So apparently Wes didn't get that memo, or well, actually, who knows? Maybe De Palma saw this movie and thought, we should make it yellow.
Yeah.
I'm sure De Palma probably watched this movie. I think he.
Oh, he almost definitely, dude. Oh yeah.
Most definitely. So
yeah,
they have
De Palma's early films, dude. I was like, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure he watched this. But like they have a duel of chainsaw versus guy with a shotgun that he didn't realize was not loaded. And the father kind of gleefully says, sorry, Krug, I only had enough. I only had one shell. Which kind of reminds me of, like, in the remake later on, the guy's like, I'm paralyzed. He's like, I didn't have any duct tape. So he's chasing around the house with the chainsaw, cutting through his own furniture, trying to slice and dice him while the wife is killing Sadie, who Sadie runs and just falls in their swimming pool in the dark. And she takes Sadie, she cuts Sadie's throat with her switchblade, which kind of sort of reminded me in a weird way of the pool death scene in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, in a weird way.
Hmm.
I don't know why, but that went through my mind when I saw that.
That's okay. It happens to me a lot, dude.
Oh, good. You have Quentin Tarantino movies popping into your head whenever. Okay, good. Not just me.
I
So,
have. It happens. We have watched collectively way too many films. Other films be popping in our heads when we start watching stuff like that. It's all good. It's all good.
yeah. But like through all of this, I feel like Wes was trying to make the parents' revenge worse
Yes.
than than Krug and Company's murders. I don't think he succeeds, and I'll tell you why.
Before you keep that, I do want to say this. I did not think about that until after I did the rewatch because I had read that somewhere. I cannot remember where. I read the fact that Wes Craven was trying to make what the parents do them worse, but I don't know. Like you, I don't know if he can succeeded. So let me see what you thought about that.
Okay, well, I'll tell you here, and then basically, I'll conclude the great one of the what I still think is one of the better chainsaw attacks in movie history, where like he gets him and he chases Krug with the chainsaw out to the front door, but oh, he's got an electrical pad sitting right there, and Krug gets electrocuted and he falls down, and he's crawling away and Krug is crawling away while the dad is revving his saw. And just as this happens, in comes the cops, finally, who have been walking in the dark for God knows how long. We think it's probably in the middle of the night when this happens. And the fat one says, "Don't do it! Don't do it!" And then, but we don't really see the chainsaw enter Krug's body.
No.
We just see the blood splatter on the sheriff's face and all over the dad. And that's when the movie stops. All other sound is almost gone. There's no music anymore. There's no rev of the chainsaw. There's just two people numb with trauma and regret sitting next to each other. I think Marty Cove comes in. I'm not sure if he takes the saw from him or if he just leaves him with it. I'm not sure.
Shit,
But that's
I
it.
paid enough attention. That's a good question. Do they take the saw from him or not?
I don't remember. If I think about it in my mind, I could see both happening. I know he does something, but that's it. And that's and in the official version that we saw, cut to black. That's it. And then we have a jaunty kind of Smokey the Bandit type song again with a roll call of all the cast.
And so, well, first of all, one is it's such an abrupt ending that it leaves you numb and shocked by what you just experienced. It is ruined by this damn roll call of all the actors, including I think her name is Ida, the black lady in the truck. And I'm like, really? Do we? I've always hated roll calls. I don't know why they were ever popular or why they showed up in films. I've always hated them. I thought they just, unless it was a stupid comedy, they just never fit. And in this film, it doesn't fit horrendously.
I kind of like it when it's in like an epic movie and you have a huge cast and they all did really great jobs and you as a director just want to showcase them one last time. Like my favorite version of this is Dune, David Lynch's Dune. I love that beautiful kind of seaside, stock footage with the Toto music and everybody in the cast just fades in and out with their name underneath them. I think that's beautiful. And I like the way they did it in Lord of the Rings as well. So for that kind of movie, that works. But for this, yeah, no. But like I said, there is a version of this movie where you don't get that. You just get the people without their names and not that music. I don't know what you hear, but like instead of the credits, you get a black screen and then that music kicks in. Maybe that's better?
What's funny is the fact that you think that the Anchor Bay version I used to own was different, and that would be that version. It would be interesting to go back and watch that version and see what my reaction was based on that version and the one I just saw. I don't know who produced the version I have now.
Or who
Uh,
distributed it? Yeah, I don't know. You'd have
I
to go digging for it, man.
Yeah, I gotta go digging for it, and it's buried with all the other Wes Craven movies I have in the back somewhere. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
worry too much about it. I just know that there does seem to be a difference between the two versions. I will say that.
Yeah. I feel like this is probably one movie that may have benefited from just like black screen credits silence for
Yes,
about
yeah.
two
I
minutes.
Well, because for me, if I had seen this at the theater, I would have walked out really fucking just jaw dropped if I just went straight to black. And I was like, holy shit, this movie just really wrung me out. Uh, uh
Yeah, yeah.
with
But
that, yeah.
yeah, I don't know what like, but like I said, I don't think I know it's horrible to say this, but I feel like they didn't lose enough to justify, you know, um, I feel like one of the parents should have died or at least lost a limb. I feel like that their plan. I think part of the problem was is that their plan worked too well. Like everything pretty much went off without a hitch, except for the gun thing. But they really pulled it in the end with the chainsaw thing. That ended up working out a lot better. I feel like if Wes Craven's intention was to show how even justified violence is terrible and is brutal and and I say even justified, but like again, like I said, this is all about Vietnam,
Mhm.
and I can't help but think like we are as we record this, we are on the eve of yet another old white man's war for oil
Yep.
that's going on right now, and we don't seem to learn this lesson. But
Nope.
yeah, yeah, and it's really kind of I had an emotional conversation with my son as we were driving around, and he asked me about gas prices, and I was telling him why, and I was like, I have this fear in the back of my mind that eventually we're going to get into one of these wars, and they'll reinstitute the draft. And I kept telling him, like, son, I'm so glad that you are 13 years old and you are not old enough to be in the military. Because if they reinstituted the draft, I swear we're going to Canada. Because you're not. I'm not gonna let them take you and force you to fight in one of those wars. That, yeah, no. So yeah. Anyway, I don't think Wes quite lands what he's trying to say, and I think I've chalked that up to inexperience.
Hmm.
Because I feel like what he should have done, if you're trying to make that point, is number one, I feel like with the chainsaw, you should have been more gutsy with that, pun intended. You should have seen it go into Krug, or at least grow into his crotch, and see blood and viscera. Because if you're trying to say that it's gross and wrong, then make it gross. But it's surprising for a chainsaw mutilation. It's surprisingly tasteful. It's about as tasteful as anything that's in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Actually, the original. Were
So
you?
it would be interesting to know what the dichotomy was between violence on women in films versus men. As you
That's
see in this film, we see a lot of violence towards women, but we see everything that's towards the men is in shadow, or we don't see it at all. It's all
yeah.
and
That's yeah. That's not good. I just realized that. Yeah. So yeah, he should have gone harder in his violence towards the men. That's number one. Number two, I feel like yes, they should have. The plan should have gone down a little worse. More things should have gotten wrong. They should have lost something more than just their freedom, maybe. Although I don't think, again, that in the reality of this world of this movie, I don't think a jury in America would have convicted them. At most, they would probably get like a manslaughter charge, a second-degree manslaughter charge by reason of insanity, and they would probably spend maybe a few months in jail, and that's it. especially since they're rich, they could also afford really good lawyers and probably get off with time served and a lifetime of trauma. But that's it. That's all they get. And, but like, yeah, I just feel like it should have been, he should have went more harder in that. I think that's the only really thing I could think of that would have made it a whole lot better. I mean, also maybe some parallelism would have been a little better, like visually. Like if Craven had had some presence of mind to kind of have the last shot of the parents mimic the shot where the killers are looking at their bloody hands a little bit. But I think another problem at the heart of this is that Wes is trying to make a point that there is a fundamental difference between the two groups of killers in this movie. And number one is Krug and Company are thrill killers. They don't think, they just do. Whereas the revenge murders were premeditated. And they had a pathology to them. And so they knew what they were doing and they knew better. So I guess in that sense, it does work. But it only really would have made any more sense if they had really gone as hard as they could have. Yeah, I guess that's that. I also would have liked to have seen some kind of, I don't know, some kind of hint of some kind of redemption at the end. I don't know. That's just me. That's the me doing a thing where sometimes I watch a movie and I end up liking or disliking a movie, not necessarily because of what I see, but because of what I want the movie to be in my head. Like it almost creates a separate movie in my head that I either like or dislike. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if that happens to you.
It makes sense, but also keep in mind that I think a lot of the stuff that you want, those elements are present in the remake.
Oh, really? Okay.
So a lot of the stuff that you and modern audiences would have liked in the film like this is in the modern day remake. I think this is a very loose film because of the time period in which it was made and the other films that its release was surrounded by. That's why I've always said this film is always like a product of its time because of that. I said that for The Hills Have Eyes when we did a discussion on that too. Those two early Craven films in particular, because of the subject matter and the way in which he handled them, are a product of its time now. I believe the remakes are much more successful at crafting what they tried to do in these early films, and attach that towards a film with similar sensibilities for a modern audience and make it actually mean what Wes Craven originally wanted them to mean.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like Wes Craven didn't sign off on the remake. He was all gung-ho about it. He executive produced it and everything. He picked the director and all that. So it's not like, it's not like this was like a travesty of his work. He was behind it. But like, I feel like, sure, the remake is probably a better crafted movie. But I feel like there's a quality that this movie has that it can never have. And I'm not sure I can really like define it, but I feel like maybe some quotes from some of the critics of its time might explain it a little bit. First of all, Roger Ebert gave this movie 3.5 stars, but Roger Ebert was always a little bit more softer on exploitation and horror than his partner Siskel, Gene Siskel, who called this one of the most irresponsible, disgusting movies ever made, and he gave it like 1 star. He hated this movie. But one of the most prestigious critics of the time, Miss Pauline Kael, she loves this movie. She said, and I quote, "It would be fun to dismiss this movie as the best movie ever made in Pittsburgh," which it was not made in Pittsburgh. It was made in New York, but okay. She goes on, "But it also happens to be one of the most gruesomely terrifying movies ever made. And when you leave the theater, you may wish you could forget the whole horrible experience." Yep. ... She says here's the interesting part. I think she says the film's grimy, banal seriousness works for it.
Mm-hmm.
It gives it a crude sense of realism. Even the flatness of the amateurish acting and the unfunny attempts at humor somehow add to the horror. There is no art to transmute the ghoulishness.
Mm. I'll agree with
So,
that.
yeah, so I think that is the heart of this version, and that's something that no modern remake can replicate. And that's the heart of, I think, what made this movie so impactful when it came out.
Well, yeah,
Was,
it's the 70s, and those type of films, like we've said before, in the 70s, that's what audiences wanted, and that's what filmmakers were crafting.
yeah,
It would be hard to sell a film like this in today's audience. The closest you're going to get is a Rob Zombie film. Is the closest you're going to get. Because he revels in that 70s aesthetic in his movies for the most part.
yeah. But at the same time, though, Rob Zombie's movies are so stylized.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
stylized. They are
yeah,
stylized, but he still likes that backwoods, grimy and grungy world of
yeah,
70s. Like most people emulate the 80s. He's
yeah,
emulating the 70s.
yeah. He's all about the 70s.
And there's not many filmmakers who do that. There's not many filmmakers that do that. Not modern day. Let me rephrase it. Not modern day filmmakers. So watch in this. And Wes Craven's one of the best directors to kind of watch and see how his style has shifted from decade to decade because he was a chameleon in that. His
Yeah,
style shifted from decade to decade. He is unlike any like it. John Carpenter couldn't do it, and neither could George Romero. Their styles remain the same no matter what decade they did their films for, which is one of the reasons why both of their filmographies didn't really grow with new audiences. They weren't they couldn't really adhere to the modern times when they made their films. They're cult films now because they're looked back at very fondly, but when they were coming out, people didn't really, they didn't talk fondly of their movies as they got older. Wes Craven's
yeah.
films were more popular the older he got, and with each decade, his
And you know
films.
what's funny? And you know what's funny too? When you look at his filmography, you realize that Wes Craven had a huge hit in almost every decade.
Yeah.
He had this movie and Hills Have Eyes. I mean, depending on your mileage, folks, you may believe this one's the hit or Hills Have Eyes is the hit. Either way, they're both in the 70s.
Yeah.
So he's got the 70s. Nightmare on Elm Street comes out in 84. Scream comes out in 93. So he's got, Hills Have Eyes, the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and Scream. 70s, 80s, and 90s belong to Wes Craven. I mean, you can't, he made two and a half, maybe three enduring masterpieces of horror that we're still making Scream movies.
Yeah.
They're still freaking making Scream movies. The man has been dead for 12 years and they're still making sequels to his movies.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I've always said this: out of all the amazing horror directors out there, Wes Craven has been the only one, in my opinion, to actually craft very suspenseful films and very films made from each of the decades in which they were produced in. Which is why I said he's like a chameleon with trying to figure out what appeals to the audience of that particular decade.
Mm-hmm.
George Romero tried to do that. Every decade, he tried to come up with a new Dead movie that kind of adhered to a specific decade in which it was time period in which it was made. He was not successful monetarily, but in terms of quality of film, that's always a debatable story.
Mm-hmm.
But he tried, but he was never a monetarily successful filmmaker like Wes Craven, and neither was John Carpenter, despite the fact that John Carpenter probably has a lot more cult movies than any of them.
Oh yeah, but even he'd be the first to say that like he hated having that distinction. Like he hated the fact that The Thing didn't do any money back then. He hated that.
His career.
Yeah, it pretty much ruined his career. Yeah, back then. Yeah, so but I mean, thank God that Carpenter's still alive to reap the benefits from that now. But yeah, I think
Oh
Wes
shit,
is
he one of our last ones still alive. Good God, him and
yeah
David Cronenberg.
him and Cronenberg and Cronenberg's almost 80.
Yeah, Cronenberg's still putting out some great movies, but they are not very popular.
Oh
Uh,
no, but yeah, no, he's
but
very arts.
yeah,
He's
they're
artsy. He's
too hard.
artsy even. He's artsy for even himself now.
But I still think he's a brilliant fucking director and
Oh
storyteller.
yeah.
But his shit is really artsy now. He like, I will make whatever the fuck I want to make because I'm David Cronenberg, motherfuckers.
That is like the least Cronenberg sounding.
I
He
know
probably say it
I
more.
can't do Cronenberg.
He, he,
I,
he would probably say it more like this, Kevin. Like I am David Cronenberg, and I could do whatever the f I want, and that's what I'm going to do. Actually, yeah.
yeah, because if he wants to direct a great movie, he'll direct a great movie. If he wants to act in a shitty movie, he'll do Jason X. Or
Or Nightbreed.
hey, Nightbreed's fucking brilliant. I'll kick your ass. Uh,
Depends on which version.
nah, they're all brilliant. I would say probably Blood and Donuts. Every once in a while, he just comes and does these random horror movies. It's so great. It's so
I
great.
forgot. I forgot about Blood and Donuts. This
Everybody did.
the
Except for
vampire.
me. I love that
Uh,
movie, dude. I love it.
oh wow. Well, speaking of blood, and speaking of the chainsaw scene, and like
Yes.
I said, I feel like that one of the problems with this movie is that he didn't go hard enough on it. Maybe that might have been a budget thing. Maybe he's just like, we don't have enough money to make some like guts come out of Krugs's naked chest. We can't make a fake chest because he's not wearing a shirt in that scene, I don't think. But my golly, can you imagine how much cooler would have been if the father had some really like cool like kill line before he's carving up Krug with that chainsaw. Imagine, if you will, a time traveling Arnold Schwarzenegger goes back. Actually, wait a minute. Schwarzenegger was Mr. Universe at the time, so he doesn't have to time travel. He could have played this part. Yeah. Imagine big burly Mr. Universe Arnold holding that little chainsaw because it would look very small compared to his triceps. Killing Krug with an absolutely deadly Schwarzenegger alternator.
It's that time.
It is that time, ladies and gentlemen. And guess what? I got 5 of these mofos.
5. Whoa.
5.
Okay.
So let's go. Here we go. These are our Schwarzenegger alternators, where we imagine what if Arnold Schwarzenegger had come in and done the kill line, the quip, when either the hero vanquishes the monster or when the or when the monster vanquishes, his victims, like Wes Craven's creation, Freddy Krueger often did. So, but I will imagine them if they were done through the master of the quip, the soliloquist of the lethal line. Here is Arnold Schwarzenegger's versions of what I imagine a good kill line would have been as he vanquishes Krug. Here we go. Number 1. Let me warm up. Yeah, okay, yeah. You are terminated. Okay, I got it. He's got, picture him, he's got the chainsaw. It's revving up. In the words of Dave Coulier, you've got to cut it out. And then slices him.
Oh, I got that part.
There's a lot. Batten down the hatches, folks. There's a lot of cutting puns in this. So this is not number 2. You know something, Krug? You may be tougher than me, but now I'm going to be a bit taller. If he cuts his head off.
That was not bad. That was not bad.
Number 3. I hear you like getting railed. Let's see how you like getting railed by this.
Okay, it was okay.
Number 4. I can replace my furniture. I can replace my table. You know what I can't replace? My daughter. And you know what you can't replace? Your balls.
Okay. That was pretty good.
And finally, number 5. You know, times like this, you find out what a man is really made of. Let's see what you are really made of. Or another way of putting it would be, you really find out what's inside the man. Let's see what's inside of you.
That one actually probably would work really well if we got to see everything that came out of him.
Exactly. If you get to see the bile and guts and the
That
evil,
would work really well.
like the moral rot of Krug personified by just bloody bile.
Yeah. All right. Well, we always, or at least I definitely always appreciate those. I was about to say Terminator alternators, Arnold Schwarzenegger alternators. Oh Jesus! I always love to appreciate you coming on our show and talking about this film, Last House on the Left. For everyone listening, we do hope that you enjoy Thomas when he does these. I'm about to say it again, Arnold Schwarzenegger alternators. But we also love to rate the movies. Now, how we rate the movies is between 1 and 5, one being 4. One being poor, 5 being amazing, and we like to attribute our ratings to a particular object, quote, or saying within the film. Now, Thomas, what rating do you attribute to this film, and what object, quote, or saying do you attribute that rating to?
Well, Kevin, there's so many little marvelous and terrible objects in this movie.
There's a lot of terrible objects in this movie.
Yes, I could, we could pick the peace necklace, but that's just too banal. It doesn't really sum up this movie. Uh, and I could be really gross and pick a few other parts and stuff, but it's just too fun. Although I feel like we're gonna do this part at some point. And I think if we finally put these as little icons on our website, it's gonna when we do our database of our reviews,
Yeah, I'm working on it, everybody. We are working on that.
I feel like it's gonna tick off whoever does that, because I feel like there's going to be the chainsaw. Ever since this movie came out, the chainsaw has become such a legendary, iconic weapon of horror, both for
Yes.
and against, both on people and zombies and against killers and stuff. Again, this is amazing. This movie came out like 3 years before, 2 years before Texas Chainsaw Massacre. So I'm gonna pick the bright red chainsaw, and I'm gonna give it. I go back and forth on this, Kevin. I'm not sure, but as it stands right now, it might change if I watch this again. But honestly, I don't think I'm gonna watch this again for a good long while.
Hmm.
I'm gonna give it 2.5. Maybe if I'm generous, 3. But no, I'm right now. I'm comfortable giving it a 2.5 bloody red chainsaws out of 5.
Interesting. I thought you were going to be higher than me, but I'm going to be higher than you on this one.
I thought I was gonna be 2, but I can't.
So
I can't do it.
there are elements of this film that I liked the second time I saw it. The thing that drives me is the fact that I don't remember the movie being funny because of the cops, and I will have to rewatch it to figure that out. Because if the cops aren't as much in the other version, I'm gonna have to search it out. Like I saw, then my rating will be worth it. We're worth every penny that I'm giving it. I am a little sad to say that I would give the remake a little higher grade than this one, because I think that was a much more realized film. But I'm going to give this one 3.5 uh ball biting incidents. Uh because
You mean penis?
yeah, yeah, I just like
You're gonna rate this movie severed penises? Is that what this
I
is?
didn't want to say it. I like saying ball biting.
She doesn't bite his balls, Kevin. Those stay intact.
Yes, but I don't want to say severed penises. But now you made me say severed penises. So now I'm saying 3.5 severed penises. Because we're having way too much fun in this episode. But that's what I'd give it. I honestly would give the remake a higher rating. And I've seen the remake more times than I've seen this one. Because the thing is, I don't feel so disgusted after watching that as I do this one, because this is like Cannibal Holocaust to me, or Human
Yeah.
Centipede. They're movies like, or a Serbian film. I kind of watched them once, and I can appreciate them, but they're not films I'm going to go back and rewatch.
No, yeah. I feel the same way.
And that's
Yeah.
why I've never rewatched this one. I just read about it and forgotten most of the stuff I've read because it's been freaking decade. But yeah, I mean that's what this film is. I think that's one of the reasons why I say this and like The Hills Have Eyes are such a product of their time is because the audience for these films were craving this type of material back then. It was edgy, it was different, it was against the it was counterculture. It was all of that rolled into one because that's what audiences wanted. That's what audiences craved. They didn't crave the status quo. They wanted something different, something edgy, something, and that's what this film was.
And
Uh,
he gave that to them in an excessive amount.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, David Hess made a career out of shit like this, dude.
Hmm.
Um,
It almost made me want to watch House at the End of the Park,
yeah.
which is a straight up ripoff of this movie, except that the only difference is that that movie is a home invasion thriller, and it's very much a eat the rich kind of thing. So you budding socialists out there might actually like that movie better than this one.
Maybe we'll put that on our list of films for this. It's not on our list. Maybe we'll get around to that one. Uh,
But
well,
yeah, I feel like this movie is like the end of a long journey for me, because like back in the 90s, I'd heard of it. And then in the 2000s, I'd seen bits of it on that, that AFI-ish list of scariest movie moments. And it was impossible to find, or every now and then I'd see the DVD and I would just look at it and not watch it.
yeah.
And then I would finally find it on Tubi. And then I'd be like, okay, I guess that's going on the list there. And I just stayed there for the longest time. No matter what Tubi shuffled and put away, Last House was always staying there.
Hmm.
And then finally I watched it this year. It finally found me. And it felt a little underwhelming in a weird way.
Well, I will say this. Not when this episode airs, it will be after our Wes Craven's tribute month. So I do implore people who have watched Wes Craven films and or study Wes Craven films to most definitely check this one out because it was one of his earliest films and earliest successes as a filmmaker, and there was a reason for it. And it is talked about a lot, not only because of the time period in which it was made and the impact that it made on the horror film genre and on audiences, but also the fact that Wes Craven is one of the most successful, consistently successful horror directors in the last 50 years or so. It's a sad that I say that since there are so many great horror directors, but none of them have been as successful as he has. Now we all talk about the more modern day filmmakers that have success rates out the ass, but really that's within the last decade, to be honest with you, when horror it right now is no longer like what do you call it, in the dredges of film society. We have horror films right now that are getting Oscar nominated and becoming huge success stories with general audiences. But back then, that's not what happened with horror. People,
No, and in fact, by the time this podcast airs, we might be living in a world where a horror movie has won Best Picture.
yeah,
Or at least has won a major award. Like there is not one, not two, but three that are nominated in major categories. You have Weapons for Best Supporting Actress. You have Frankenstein, which is nominated for Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, Best Picture, and among other several other awards. And then you have Sinners, which a vampire movie is Best Actor, Best Director, Best Screen. Sinners might just pull an upset and sweep the awards this year.
well, let's hope not. I was really happy, and this is going to be old news for all you out there. I was really happy when Amy Madigan won for Weapons for Screen Actors Guild for Best Supporting Actress. She's my favorite thing in that whole damn movie. Everyone who's listened to that podcast on Weapons knows I fucking love Amy Madigan. Amy, good, I'm hoping she takes it home. As much as I love a lot of the other actors in the category, fucking Amy Madigan just knocks it out of the park. And I was really happy to hear that she got that. And like I said, you're right. It doesn't happen very often where the horror genre gets as many nominations as it currently does in Academy Awards, much less anyone getting acting awards in those. You know, I'm glad to see the upturn. That means that, we will have more successes with horror films. More people will take it seriously. And it means nothing but great things for the genre, despite the fact that they're, making a Scream 7 now that's successful as of this week when it just came out. So this is very old, you guys, when you're listening to this. But yes. But with that, I want to thank you all for listening to our conversation in horror, in which we delved into Wes Craven's Last House on the Left. Please make sure to check out all of our previous episodes of Wes Craven films. We have done a lot now that we did a special themed month based on his films. So there are plenty of films or episodes about his films that we have done in the past. So please check those out. Also, make sure to like, follow, share, subscribe. Do that thing you do with your favorite podcast or your favorite podcast app, Spotify or YouTube. And then check out our other podcast, Conversations in Hammer Studio Horrors, which delves into the 60s, 70s, and 80s of the Hammer Studio films. If you love classic horror films, you're going to love that podcast, because we don't do anything here but talk about horror, and all we do it for is for you, our listeners, who we hope love horror. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Have a good day.
And the road leads to nowhere.
Conversations in Horror is a Broken Lighthouse Pictures production. Written, produced, and directed by Kevin L. Powers. Executive producer Kelly A. Inoka. All contents and material from this episode of Conversations in Horror is copyright 2025 Broken Lighthouse Pictures.